On the final day of college application submissions, school beautician Tang Tang proposed that the entire class go on an expedition to Snake Island. There are hundreds of species of snakes there, all kinds of shapes and colors. It's absolutely stunning. To my disbelief, the whole class unanimously agreed to Shen Tongtong's proposal. Only I, born into a family of explorers, knew the truth, that island was infested with venomous snakes. A single bite meant instant death in my past life. As the class academic monitor, I begged everyone not to go. What did I get in return? Their insults. You poor thing. You're just jealous that Tongtong's family is rich, so you don't want us to listen to her. I knelt before each of them, kowtowing until my forehead bled, nearly dying from the effort. Only then did they curse and reluctantly abandon the Snake Island plan. But on the day we received our admission letters, Shen Tang was crushed into pulp by a massive truck. Her childhood friend led the entire class to blockade my doorstep, demanding I pay for her death. If you hadn't forced us to isolate Tang, she wouldn't have gone insane and run onto the highway to get hit by a car. You're just jealous of the rich. They doused me in gasoline and burned me alive when my parents rushed to save me. They were stabbed multiple times. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the final day of application submissions. After I died, I watched as her childhood friend Li Zichuan led the classmates to destroy my family's surveillance cameras. Then they fed my parents and my bodies to piranhas. Li Zichuan even paid out of his own pocket for a specialized cleaner to erase all traces. By the time the police arrived, only a few ribs remained of me and my parents. Li Zichuan, like a master actor, burst into tears before the officers. Yang Ji and her family died so tragically. Our whole class is devastated. Please, you must find the killer. A murder with no evidence, forever. A mystery. My soul trembled uncontrollably, 2 streams of blood tears sliding from my eyes. Just as I was sobbing to the point of breathlessness, a familiar voice rang in my ears. Song Yanga, what are you spacing out for? You're the only one who hasn't voted yet. My heart jolted. Instinctively, I pinched my arm. Pain, real pain. I had been reborn. Li Zichuan looked at me with displeasure, impatience lacing his voice. Tang has been waiting for you, checking her watch for half an hour. Are you coming or not? I suppressed the joy of rebirth and scanned the whole class. They all stared at me coldly, with hints of disgust in their eyes. Since they didn't want me in their circle, why should I force myself? I replied flatly. I'm not going. I don't want to miss the application deadline because of a trip to Snake Island. Li Zichuan's face flushed with anger as he glared at me. We're taking Tongtong's private jet to Snake Island. Round trip is only an hour. Once we're there, we plan to play for just 3 hours. The application deadline is at 6 p.m. We'll be back in plenty of time. I let out a cold laugh. I'm afraid you won't survive even 10 minutes on that island. Li Zichuan clenched his fists in fury. You're just jealous that I listened to Tongtong's suggestion. So you're deliberately opposing her. The classmates chimed in with their complaints. Stubborn as a mule. That poor bone of hers. We kindly invite her to join, and she has to be difficult. Look at her pathetic, cheap demeanor. Still daring to be jealous of Tang. Disgusting. Good riddance. She's not coming. Wherever she is, the air stinks. The barrage of criticism nearly burst my eardrums. Then Shen Tang walked over to Li Zichuan, hooking her arm through his, her face twisted in feigned hurt, squeezing out a few tears. Younger, I invited you because I really wanted us to be best friends. Zichuan has tutored you so many times. Without him, you'd never have made it into the top 10. Can't you do it for his sake, just to give me some face? Li Zichuan and I lived on the same floor of the same building. We grew up together, known in the neighborhood as childhood sweethearts. He had a natural gift for learning. Just one glance at the textbook and he understood everything. I, on the other hand, was born slow-witted. Even if I listened carefully in class, I couldn't grasp what the teacher said, so my mother never hesitated to slip red envelopes to Li Zichuan's mom, begging him to tutor me. I hated seeing my mom waste her money. Every time Li Zichuan tutored me, I took meticulous notes on every point he made. But the whole class mistakenly thought I had a crush on him. I admit, a guy like him, handsome and academically brilliant, was hard not to be drawn to, but for me, It stopped at mere attraction. Then Shen Tangtang transferred to our class from another school, and Li Zichuan's flirtatious eyes never left her. He no longer had any interest in tutoring me. Of course, I didn't want my mom's money to go to waste, so even as Li Zichuan trailed after Shen Tangtang every day, I pestered him to keep tutoring me. Those sycophantic classmates only became more convinced that I was destined to marry him, but I couldn't care less what they thought, as long as I could stay in the top 10. Let them misunderstand. Later, in the first mock exam, I scored 715 points, just 5 points less than Li Zichuan, who was first in the grade. From then on, Shen Tangtang started competing with me in secret. She couldn't beat me academically, so she always flaunted her relationship with Li Zichuan in front of me. Yet, inspired by my example, the whole class began working hard, climbing a few ranks each exam. Only Shen Tangtang kept slipping, scoring worse every time. In the final mock exam, she got a pathetic 30 points. She couldn't stand the thought of her classmates getting into college alongside me. Once, when I went to the bathroom, I overheard her on the phone with her mom. She planned to take the whole class to Snake Island on the last day of applications. When we were attacked by venomous snakes, she'd escape in her family's private jet. The memories of my family's brutal murder in my past life were still vivid. I replied coldly to Shen Tangtang, "Why should I do it for his sake?" Every time he tutored me, his mom took plenty of red envelopes from mine, at least 100,000 in total. I don't owe him anything. Pestering him for tutoring was just because I didn't want my mom's money to go to waste. As soon as I finished speaking, everyone stared in disbelief. So Song Younger doesn't actually like Li Zichuan, she was just using him to boost her grades. Li Zichuan bragged to me several times that Song Younger was his lapdog. Looks like he was fooling himself. What a schemer, Song Younger. She played Li Zichuan for 3 whole years. Li Zichuan's face turned ashen, his icy eyes fixed on me without a word. As I turned to leave, Shen Tangtang grabbed my arm, tears glistening in her eyes. "At the very least, H1 was your mentor in studies. If you don't go, he'll lose face." I shoved Shen Tangtang aside, my voice firm and unyielding. "It's his face that's lost, not yours. What are you fake crying for?" But Shen Tangtang deliberately twisted her ankle and fell to the ground, a theatrical stumble that echoed in the silent hallway. She burst into a pitiful wail, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was being nice, giving you a way out, but you refused to take it, and you pushed me on purpose. You're so vicious." Li Zichuan rushed over, one hand helping Shen Tangtang to her feet, the other pointing at me as he roared, "Apologize to Tangtang." I sneered, my eyes filled with disdain. "Are your eyes on the back of your head?" She fell on her own. Shen Tangtang's little sidekick, Ju Lan, charged at me, her palm cracking against my cheek with a sharp slap. B***** keys are always so dramatic. Classmates, even if we have to tie her up, we're dragging this B****ch to Snake Island. Ju Lan's words hung in the air, and a crowd surged forward, pinning me to the ground. I glared at them, my voice trembling with rage. "You bunch of sycophants, one day, you'll get what you deserve." Li Zichuan grabbed my head and slammed it against the floor. A searing pain split my scalp, and blood streamed down, staining my entire face crimson. He tied a rope around me as he muttered, "You scheming little witch, once we get you to Snake Island, I'll feed you to the Snake King." Shen Tangtang stood by, arms crossed, a smug smile curling at the corners of her lips as she watched the scene unfold. Then, a helicopter touched down. Shen Tangtang turned to the group, "Classmates, let's go." With that, she and Li Zichuan walked hand in hand toward the aircraft. The others followed in excitement, their footsteps quick and eager. I was shoved forward by several burly male classmates, who dragged me toward the boarding ramp. My feet scraped against the ground, blood seeping from the wounds as I fought desperately. "If you dare take my daughter to Snake Island, I'll make you pay with your lives." 3. It was Mom. Dad followed close behind her. Mom shoved aside the male classmates, pulling out a sharp knife. "Try touching my daughter again." Dad steadied me with one hand while holding up his phone with the other, recording the scene. "I've captured every word and action of yours. Now, when universities admit students, they look at more than just grades. They consider character too. If I post this video online, every single one of you will be rejected. The male classmates backed off wisely. The others had already boarded the helicopter, forced to watch helplessly as my parents led me away. Before leaving, I deliberately made a face at Shen Tangtang, who was biting her lip in frustration. I mouthed the words, B***tch. You miscalculated. Shen Tangtang couldn't hold onto her ladylike facade any longer. She stomped her feet in fury. Li Zichuan pulled her into his arms, his eyes full of concern. Don't be upset, getting worked up over an ungrateful wretch like her isn't worth it. I let out a cold snort. Let him laugh now. Once he's on Snake Island, he'll be the one crying. Once I was in Dad's car, Mom immediately pulled out the first aid kit, dabbing antiseptic on my wounds. Our family loved adventure, so the car was always stocked with survival gear. Mom wept as she spoke. In your past life, they tortured you to death. In this one, they still want to trample you. Those little bastards deserve to be torn apart. Dad glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Sweetheart, don't be afraid. This time, your mom and I have already figured out how to punish them. I froze for a few seconds, then stared at my parents in disbelief. Are you too, Reborn too? Both of them nodded. Since fate has given our family a second chance, we have to seize it and make sure those ingrates meet a terrible end. Dad's words hung in the air as Mom dialed a number. Hello, Aji. You see, Mom was actually a daughter of the prestigious Fu family in Jingbei. Because her older sister had inherited the family business, outsiders never knew the Fu family had a younger daughter. The voice on the other end was my aunt. A glint of ruthlessness flashed in Mom's eyes. Sis, that new Snake Island you bought, a group of high school students will be visiting it soon. Have someone block off all the exits and release the most venomous snakes. Don't give them any chance to escape. Was it those high school students who tortured you to death in your past life? There was a few seconds of silence on the other end before the reply came. Don't worry, I'll make sure there's no evidence left behind. It turned out that the first thing Mom did after being reborn was to tell Aunt about our past life's ordeal. Aunt had always doted on Mom, so of course she would make those who harmed her pay. Back home, I immediately logged into my account and applied to Qingbei University, my dream school. Just as I finished, my WeChat buzzed with a message from Shen Tangtang. It was a series of intimate videos of her and Li Zichuan on the helicopter. I clicked on one casually. They were kissing passionately, their saliva practically stringing together. Soon, Li Zichuan posted a photo on his moments. Shen Tangtang sat on his lap, his arms wrapped around her waist as he kissed her cheek. The caption read, "Thanks to someone's sacrifice, I can now boldly pursue my goddess." Disgusting. I wondered if they could keep up the romance once they reached Snake Island. Feeling elated, I logged into my Douyin account, Yang Ji Loves Adventure, started a live stream, and shared survival tips with my fans. Suddenly, Shen Tangtang's account sent me a live request. After a moment's hesitation, I accepted. Since she loved showing off so much, I'd let the whole internet watch her and her classmates get bitten to death by venomous snakes. For Yang Ji, we've arrived at Snake Island, just 1 more kilometer, and we'll see the snakes. Too bad you're not here. In the live stream, Shen Tangtang was beaming, her voice syrupy and nauseating, but as a beauty influencer, she had a loyal fanbase. The comments exploded. Oh, Goddess Tangtang is so cool, taking the whole class to Snake Island. Wow, the top donor just sent 66 gifts in a row. Not just pretty, but bold too. How can anyone not love Tangtang? The praise for Shen Tangtang kept pouring in, and she basked in the adoration, her eyes curving into crescents. The livestream's viewer count skyrocketed from 100,000 to over 8 million. Then, Li Zichuan joined the stream. He wrapped an arm around Shen Tangtang's waist, looking at me with contempt. Song Yang Ji, not coming to Snake Island is the biggest loss of your life. Just wait and watch us have fun. You'll be crying. I let out a chuckle. Who would be crying and who would be laughing was still up in the air. Ju Lan, standing beside Shen Tangtang, scowled and pointed a finger at me. I was laughing so hard I could barely breathe. A bunch of idiots. I bet you won't even get your cameras open before those snakes bite you to death. Ju Lan's face flushed crimson with rage. You're just sour grapes because you can't have what we have." The live chat started attacking me too. This Song Younger is just jealous that Tang Tang is prettier and richer than her. Even her childhood friend can't stand her. Shows what kind of person she really is, who would curse their own classmates to get bitten by venomous snakes. Only her, pure evil. But the more they insulted me, the more satisfaction I felt inside, because the ones about to get humiliated were Shen Tang Tang and her crew. "Wow, look, a huge green snake," Julan shrieked. Shen Tang Tang and the others had already stepped into the viper's nest. That huge green snake Julan pointed at was a green mamba my aunt had shipped from Africa. Outsiders only saw the mamba's dazzling green scales and thought it was beautiful, but I knew better. That green skin was just its tool to fool everyone right now. The green mamba coiled on the tree branch stared down at Julan with cold, predatory eyes. Flicking its dark forked tongue, Shen Tang Tang deliberately urged her on. "Didn't you bring a ton of snacks? Go ahead, feed it." Julan immediately pulled out a bag of chips before feeding it. She shot me another smug grin. "I'm going to feed the big green snake some snacks." I smiled back. "Good luck." Julan hadn't even brought the chips to the mamba's mouth when its jaws clamped down on her hand. She screamed in agony. Help." Blood gushed from Julan's hand. She started foaming at the mouth, her entire body convulsing. The other students stood frozen in shock. Shen Tang Tang quickly pulled out her phone and called her private pilot. "Hey, come pick me up right now. Someone's about to die." Li Zichuan grabbed Shen Tang Tang's arm, his face twisted with fear. "Tang Tang, take me with you." But Shen Tang Tang shoved his hand away, dragging a dead weight along. "Would just slow me down." Li Zichuan's eyes went wide with disbelief. Was everything you felt for me fake?" Just then, Julan let out another blood-curdling scream. She collapsed to the ground, her body covered in purple blotches. Both her hands had already been gnawed off by the green mamba. Everyone finally snapped out of it and started running, but the next second, hundreds of green mambas surrounded them. The entire class's screams echoed through the livestream. I watched coldly as they ran for their lives, my heart completely numb. In my past life, they had dumped an entire bucket of gasoline on me. The raging flames engulfed me, and I watched helplessly as every inch of my skin burned away. I crawled to them, begging them to grab a fire extinguisher and put me out. They just stared at me with cold indifference. Li Zichuan even pulled out a stopwatch to see how long I could last. The others counted to 10, and I collapsed. Thick black smoke rose from my body, the smell of charred flesh mixed with blood. The pain was beyond unbearable. When my parents arrived, they held my dead body and wailed with heartbreak. My mother stood up trembling. The moment she raised her hand to slap Li Zichuan, he kicked her to the ground. Julan quickly pulled out a fruit knife and stabbed it into my mother's abdomen, over and over, until she stopped breathing. My father lunged at them like a madman, but the tall, muscular boys grabbed him and pinned him down. Julan sliced off my father's private parts, blood soaked through his pants, but they still wouldn't let him go. They stabbed again and again into his wound. Right now, the live chat was tearing into me. "Song Younger, don't you know a lot about survival? Tell Tang Tang how to fight that big green snake." "I'm still waiting for Tang Tang to enroll at my university and be my junior. Hurry up and tell her what you know about wilderness survival. Tang Tang hasn't even submitted her college applications yet. What if she can't escape those snakes?" Oh no, oh no. The whole class was running out of breath. One by one, seeing the snakes closing in on them, they started blaming me. "Song Younger, tell us what to do. If you don't, I'll come back and make you pay. Bitch, we're fighting for our lives while you just sit there calm. We're your classmates. How can you watch us die from snake venom? I'll give you 5 seconds to decide whether to save us. If you don't, I'll kill you." I couldn't help but laugh at their threats. "Kill me? How exactly are you going to do that? You can't even guarantee you'll survive, and you're talking about killing me. You can all wait for the Grim Reaper to collect your corpses." Just then, pale-faced Shen Tang Tang put on a brave front. "Don't worry, everyone, my pilot is coming to get me any second now. I'm going to survive. You don't need to beg." Song Younger. The moment she finished speaking, Julan, barely alive, crawled to Shen Tang Tang's feet. She lifted her blooded, mangled head and looked up at Shen Tang Tang with pitiful eyes. "Tang Tang, I need medical help right now. when you get on the plane, please take me with you." Shen Tang kicked Julan away, disgust written all over her face. "The venom has already seeped into your organs. You're beyond saving. Better to sacrifice you to these snakes so the rest of us have time to escape." Julan's pupils dilated in shock. She stared at Shen Tang in disbelief. You, I treated you like my best friend, and you." Before she could finish, Li Zichuan slapped her across the face. "Your family's poor, your grades are trash. Trading your life for all of ours is your honor." 6. Julan's face was filled with utter despair. She collapsed limply to the ground. Shen Tang nodded to the tall, muscular boys. They quickly grabbed Julan and threw her straight into the swarm of green mambas. Screams of agony echoed across the entire Snake Island. I watched coldly, remembering how my parents had been tortured to death by Julan in my past life. I felt nothing but pure satisfaction. In less than 10 minutes, Julan had dissolved into a pool of blood. Even her bones were devoured by the snakes. My grandmother once told me that people who are eaten alive by venomous snakes can never reincarnate. They drift through space forever, becoming wandering ghosts. The live chat exploded again. A living person just vanished without a trace, not even a single mark left behind. I just threw up everything I ate. That girl died so horribly. If I were on that island, my legs would have given out from fear. I wouldn't even have the strength to run. My heart is pounding so fast. These vipers are 100 times more terrifying than I ever imagined. I'm so scared that Tang won't make it out alive at that moment. The Shun family's helicopter circled above the Snake Island. Shen Tang, who was desperately fleeing, finally breathed a sigh of relief and waved toward the pilot. "I'm over here." But the pilot said to her instead, "Miss, I'm sorry, there's an electromagnetic pulse interference net deployed above the Snake Island. Once the aircraft gets close, the net will release a pulse, instantly burning the plane to a crisp, and I'll be burned alive too." Shen Tong's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean by that?" The pilot stammered, Sorry. Miss, I can't sacrifice my own life just to save you." With that, the pilot turned the helicopter around and flew away. Shen Tang gritted her teeth in fury. "Get back here. If you don't save me, I'll have my dad fire you right away." But the pilot pretended not to hear, the helicopter growing more distant. An unprecedented wave of fear washed over Shen Tang. The color drained from her face at this moment. The group of green mambas was only 500 meters away. Shen Tang trembled all over and cast a pleading look at me. "Yang Ji, you're the only one who can help me. I'm going to be a star and make movies in the future. I don't want to die in the mouths of these venomous snakes. Please tell me how to fight them off. If I get out alive, I'll definitely have my dad reward you with 5 million. My eyes were cold and sharp as I looked at her. "I haven't studied this type of snake. I don't know how to save you. In my past life, Shen Tang didn't die at all." The viral video of her being crushed by a truck was something she had fabricated. After confirming that Li Zichuan had seen that video, she even sent him a WeChat message. "If Song Younger hadn't encouraged you all to ostracize me, I wouldn't have run onto the highway like a madwoman. She's the one who killed me." After doing all this, Shen Tang flew abroad, used her father's money to bribe her way into a private university, and lived there carefree, studying drama performance and chasing her star dream. Seeing that I refused to save her, Shen Tang finally dropped her pretense. She glared at me with hatred. "Song Younger, you're letting your own classmate die without lifting a finger. Do you even have a heart?" I shrugged. "You guys were the ones who insisted on courting death. I can't do anything about that." Shen Tang was about to say more when Li Zichuan grabbed her hand. "I've carefully studied the map just now. This island has 4 escape exits. Let's split into 4 groups and run toward each exit separately. That way, we can divert the snake's attention, and our chances of survival will be much greater." Shen Tang threw her arms around Li Zichuan, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. "Chuan, you're amazing. I apologize for everything I said and did before." Li Zichuan wrapped his arm around her waist. "Then you have to promise me, if I get you out of here alive, I'll become the Shun family's live-in son-in-law in the future." I had always thought that a guy like Li Zichuan, who had good grades and a decent family background, would have a proud and unyielding spirit, but here he was, scheming to latch onto a rich, beautiful woman's family fortune just to skip decades of hard work. From this perspective, he wasn't anything special after all. For Shen Tangtang at this moment, survival was the top priority. She kissed Li Zichuan wildly on the face. "Baby, I promise, if you can get me out alive, not just me, but everything in the Shen family will be yours." That batch of brain-dead commenters was raining flowers and spamming the screen. "Oh my god, the Tangchuan couple is just too adorable. Song Younger must be feeling sour inside. Li Zichuan, give her a good lesson. When Tangtang gets married, we all need to show up in person and give gifts." Laughable, they were putting on a Snake Island version of a life-and-death romance. Soon, Shen Tangtang and Li Zichuan couldn't keep up their bravado. When they reached the exit, they found it blocked by a massive electric grid. Li Zichuan, unwilling to give up, reached out and touched the grid. The next second, he was thrown several meters away by a powerful electric shock. A mouthful of blood sprayed from his lips. He clutched his chest tightly, his face twisted in agony, as if the jolt had been excruciatingly painful. He looked at Shen Tangtang with pleading eyes and struggled to speak. "Tangtang, quick, help me up." But Shen Tangtang pointed a trembling finger behind him, her eyes filled with terror. "You, behind you." Li Zichuan's body jerked violently, his eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. He slowly turned around. There, towering above him, was an enormous green mamba. I looked closely. It was the king of the green mambas. Li Zichuan's face turned ashen. He kowtowed repeatedly to the green mamba, a yellow liquid streaming from his pants. "Grandpa Green, please, I beg you, don't eat me." In a panic, he threw the jade pendant necklace from his neck toward the Snake King. "Grandpa Green, this was passed down from my great-grandfather. It can bless a person's health. I'm giving it to you, so it will bless you with a smooth life. From now on." The Snake King swiveled its eyes, brought its head close to the jade pendant, and flicked its tongue rapidly. Li Zichuan looked at Shen Tangtang and burst into hysterical laughter. "See, Grandpa Green likes my pendant. We're saved." Shen Tangtang was already dazed, muttering over and over, "That's good. That's good. That's good." Suddenly, a blood-curdling "ah" made Shen Tangtang shiver uncontrollably. The Snake King had bitten down on Li Zichuan's groin area, and a torrent of blood gushed out like a fountain, splattering all over Shen Tangtang's face. She collapsed to the ground, letting out a series of piercing screams. Li Zichuan finally felt the same pain my father had endured in my past life. I stared unblinkingly at the scene, the flames of hatred burning in my heart. This boy I had grown up with. I had trusted him so much, but when he led the entire class to slaughter my family, all my feelings for him vanished in an instant. Li Zichuan covered his injured area with one hand while fending off the Snake King with the other, enduring its frenzied bites. He looked at me and begged, "Yang Ji, I'm done for. Please, please come and save me." My eyes were as cold as ice, and I gritted my teeth. "This is all your own doing." Despair and guilt were written all over Li Zichuan's face. One of his hands had already been completely gnawed off by the Snake King. Like Julan, his body was covered in purple spots, he was foaming at the mouth, and he trembled uncontrollably. Soon, the Snake King bit into one of his legs, but he struggled desperately, crawling toward Shen Tangtang with all his might. "Tangtang, save, save, save me." Shen Tangtang retched, grabbed a large rock, and smashed it against Li Zichuan's head. She hit him dozens of times. Li Zichuan's entire head was encased in a thick, crimson mask of blood. With his last breath, he gasped out weakly, Why did you do this to me?" Shen Tangtang had completely lost her grip on sanity. A venomous smile twisted across her face. "I never liked you. In fact, I hated you. Being with you was just to get back at Song Younger. I pushed you all to come to Snake Island because I was jealous. Jealous that you could get into university while I couldn't. My plan was that once the venomous snakes attacked, I'd hop on a helicopter and fly abroad to study. But I never thought I'd be this unlucky, stuck here with all of you. You're going to die anyway. Let the Snake King finish you off. That way, I'll have time to escape." Li Zichuan laughed and cried at the same time, mocking himself. Karma, this is all karma. I watched the two of them tearing into each other with a calm face, but the hatred inside me burned just as fiercely. Shen Tangtang stumbled to her feet, trembling behind her. Li Zichuan's agonized screams echoed just then. The other three group members patched into Shen Tangtang's line. Tangtang, the exit on my side is blocked by an electric net. There's no way out. 3 classmates have already been swallowed alive by venomous snakes. 5 of my classmates are dead. What do we do? I was planning to apply to Tsinghua and Peking University. Woo-woo, there are only 3 of us left here. Everyone else is dead. I guess I'll have to wait for the next life to go to college. It's over. We're all going to die in this godforsaken place. Some were crying, some screaming, some cursing. They all deeply regretted listening to Shen Tangtang's advice to come to Snake Island. Shen Tangtang cut off their connections and smashed her phone on the ground. Damn it, so noisy. I need to save my energy to get out of here. I still want to be a big star. Before she could finish, a green mamba appeared in front of her, just a fist's length away. Shen Tangtang stared at the green mamba, frozen in place. Pure terror was written all over her face. Ah, help! The word help hadn't even fully escaped her lips when the green mamba opened its massive jaws and sank its fangs into her face. My face, half of Shen Tangtang's face caved in, only her mouth remained, the rest was chewed away, even the bone was exposed. She flailed and screamed, her voice growing hoarser by the second. The livestream's comments went wild. Shen Tangtang looks like this now. Forget being a star, even the king of hell wouldn't take her as a ghost. So disgusting. My stomach acid is churning. Guys, stop watching. It's too much to handle. The viewer count plummeted from hundreds down to single digits. I glanced at my watch. 5 minutes until 6 o'clock in the evening. Once 6 o'clock passed, these people on Snake Island wouldn't be able to submit their college applications anymore. This was the price they had to pay. By now, Shen Tangtang, completely unhinged, was wrestling with the green mamba, the snake coiled tightly around her. Tearing at her chest, she bit down on the snake's 7-inch spot, already gnawing a hole through it. You dare ruin my face, I'll fight you to the death. I turned off the livestream and logged out of my account. The outcome was set. This time, none of them would leave Snake Island alive that night. Around 10 o'clock, Weibo crashed. Every post was about on the last day of college application submissions. All students from a top class die on Snake Island. When the police arrived, they saw bones everywhere and threw up. The top student's mother recognized his bones because of a jade pendant necklace lying next to them. The school beauty died horribly too. Her head and chest were torn apart by snakes, and she still had a snake in her mouth. She was the only one with a body left. The rest were just a few bones. TSK, 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 absolutely tragic. They were even live streaming while trying to escape. Their class monitor didn't go and just watch them get bitten by venomous snakes. You can't blame the class monitor. Her fans were in the live stream too, and they all testified that those people insisted on going to Snake Island to die. The next morning, several police officers found my aunt and interrogated her about why she had blocked all the exits on the island. She pulled out a contract for the sale of the island and said calmly, I already sold Snake Island to an Arab businessman. You should go talk to him. Chinese police had no jurisdiction in Arabia. Finding that Arab businessman to hold him accountable was nearly impossible. Just like in my past life, this murder would remain unsolved. Only this time, the ones who died without a trace were these ungrateful wolves. I got into Tsinghua University, just as I had hoped. On the first day of school, both my parents came to see me off. Standing at the university gate, looking at the 4 characters for Tsinghua University, I smiled sweetly. All the painful experiences of my past life were behind me. For the next 4 years of college, I had to work hard and strive to become a pillar of the nation. Next, let's listen to the next story. The June asphalt had been softened by the relentless sun, each tire rolling over it with a sticky, sucking sound that seemed to pull at the very air. The bus windows were smeared with a chaotic mosaic of fingerprints and water stains. Sunlight pierced through the grime, casting mottled, shifting shadows across my face. I opened my eyes, and a wave of air, thick with the mingled sense of sweat, cheap perfume, and sun-warmed leather seats hit my nostrils, making my stomach lurch violently. Pei Jiu, hey, Pei Jiu, are you asleep? You're drooling, he yoons. Voice cut through the haze from my left, tinged with laughter, as his finger jabbed my shoulder with a playful, insistent pressure. I turned my head to look at him, my gaze lingering on the familiar features. 18-year-old He-yoon, his school uniform zipper half undone, revealing the crisp collar of a white t-shirt underneath. His bangs lay softly across his forehead, and when he smiled, his teeth were impossibly white, his features clean and impossibly handsome. In my past life, I was fooled by that face for 3 years. A bitter taste rose in my throat. The corner of your mouth. He extended his thumb, reaching to wipe the corner of my lips with a gesture that once would have made my heart skip. But now, my stomach acid surged into my throat, a hot, acidic wave. This hand, this very hand, 3 months from now, would press against my back and shove me forward with brutal, unforgiving force. The wind from the cliff would roar into my ears, drowning out everything, and I wouldn't hear a single sound. The bus rumbled along the uneven road, the morning light slanting through the grimy windows and casting long, dusty shadows across the worn seats. He-yoon's voice cut through the low hum of chatter, tinged with concern. Jiu, your face looks terrible. Car sick. He leaned in a little closer, his hand reaching out as if to check my forehead. I flinched, dodging his touch with a sharp, instinctive movement. No, the word came out hoarse, scraping against my throat like sandpaper dragged across a sheet of iron. I swallowed, feeling the dryness coating my tongue. Lowering my head, I caught sight of the faded school uniform I was wearing, a pale blue fabric, worn thin at the elbows. On the left chest, the blue school crest of Linjiang-no 1 High School was printed, its edges slightly frayed. My pocket was bulging. I slipped my hand inside, my fingertips brushing against something stiff, a card. I pulled it out slowly, my breath catching. Admission ticket. The words blurred for a moment before snapping into focus. Pei Jiu, candidate number 07230XXXX, exam location, Linjiang-no 1 High School, exam room 3, seat number 15. My fingers trembled slightly, not from excitement, not from anticipation, because I clearly remembered what was coming. In about 15 minutes, the girl with the high ponytail sitting in the 3rd row ahead would stand up. She would walk over to me, her steps light and deliberate, and then, in front of all 47 people on this bus, she would snatch this piece of paper right out of my hand and tear it to shreds. Zhong Yao Yao. I lifted my eyes slowly, my gaze crawling forward through the stale air. She was leaning sideways in her seat, her body angled toward a few boys next to her, her voice bright and melodic as she chatted and laughed, her eyes crinkled into crescent moons, her ponytail swinging back and forth with every movement. She had altered her school uniform, cinched tight at the waist, the hem shortened by a few inches, revealing a small strip of pale skin just above her waistline. The boys around her couldn't tear their eyes away, their gazes clung to her like flies to honey. I watched her laugh, the sound hollow in my ears. My fingers tightened around the admission ticket, the edges digging into my palm. Yao Yao, after the exam, let me treat you to a meal. Get lost. Yao Yao already promised to go with me. All of you, line up, first come, first served. Laughter, roughhousing, the noise swelled like a bustling vegetable market. I stared at the back of Zhong Yaoiro's head, my temples throbbed violently. In my past life, it took me 18 years to recognize a single truth. Zhong Yao Yao was never just careless. The day she tore up my admission ticket, all the boys on the bus laughed uproariously. He-yoon sat right next to me, without saying a single word. I was frantic. I forced the bus to stop to get a replacement, wasted over 2 hours, almost missed the first exam. Later, I checked the surveillance footage, called the police. Zhong Yao Yao was detained. She became the only one in the class who didn't take the college entrance exam. I thought that was the end of it, until the graduation trip. He-yoon smiled and took my hand, said he wanted to take me to see the sunrise at 4 in the morning. The mountain road was rugged, his hand was warm and strong. My heart was full of trust. We reached the cliff's edge. He let go of my hand. Pei Jiu, When he called me by my full name, his tone was so cold I thought I'd misheard him. Yao Yao tore your admission ticket just to make everyone laugh. You had to call the police and ruin her entire life, a cold-blooded viper like you doesn't deserve to live in this world. Then, a palm shoved against my back, the sound of wind, falling, darkness, that feeling of weightlessness was etched into my bones right now, sitting on this bus. My butt numb from the vibrations of the diesel engine. That spot on my back still felt cold. I pulled the admission ticket out of my pocket, stared at it for 3 seconds, my thumb traced the edge of the paper once, twice, a slow, deliberate motion. Then I did one thing. I rummaged through my backpack, fingers brushing past pens and erasers until they found a math practice test from last week. I folded it carefully, creasing the edges to match the size of the admission ticket, and stuffed it into the left pocket of my uniform. The real admission ticket. I rolled it up, tight, and tucked it into the hidden layer inside my undershirt, pressing it flat against my chest. He-Yoon was looking at his phone next to me, scrolling with one thumb, and didn't notice. I sat up straight, leaned back against the seat, and closed my eyes. My breath slowed. Wait, the bus jolted for 10 minutes. The laughter and chatter from the front row gradually quieted down, because the exam site was approaching. And some people were starting to get nervous. I could feel the tension in the air, a subtle shift in the way people shifted in their seats. Then I heard that sound. The chair spring gave a squeak, footsteps, sneakers stepping on the rubber mat of the bus aisle, light, with a bouncing rhythm. Pei Jiu. Jong Yororo's voice was cloyingly sweet, like pouring 3 tubes of condensed milk into coffee. Thick, sticky, artificial. I opened my eyes. She was standing in front of me, one hand propping herself against the backrest of the front seat, looking down at me, her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Are you nervous? Let me see your admission ticket. Her hand reached out, fast, precise. Her fingertips pinched the corner of a piece of paper sticking out of my pocket and yanked it out. The fabric of my pocket tugged slightly. In my past life, I hadn't reacted in time to this move. In this life, I didn't stop her either. I let my hand fall to my side. My expression blank. Jong Yao Yao held up the paper, lifted her chin, and her voice suddenly rose. Oh, don't you brothers hate her pretentious, aloof act the most? She paused, letting the words sink in. I'll tear up her admission ticket, and then we'll see how she can go to the exam hall and put on airs. Her hand tore with force. Rip. The pieces of paper fluttered down, spinning in the air like confetti. The bus erupted in roaring laughter, a wave of sound that crashed over me, sharp and mocking. I watched the fragments settle on the floor, my lips pressed into a thin line. Damn, Yao Yao, you're way too ruthless. Ha ha ha, look at Pei Jiu's face, now she can't take the exam for shit. The laughter swirled around me like a storm. I didn't flinch. Instead, I let my gaze drift sideways, just a fraction of an inch, to He-Yoon, sitting beside me. There it was, that faint, almost imperceptible curve at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were fixed on the window, watching the blur of trees and buildings pass by like a show that had absolutely nothing to do with him. The scraps of paper fluttered down, some landed on my lap, some scattered across the floor, a few wedged themselves into the narrow gaps between the seats. In my past life, at this exact moment, my eyes would have already burned red, tears would have pooled, then spilled, then stained everything. But this life, no. I lowered my head, slowly, deliberately. I reached down and picked up a piece of torn paper from my knee. My fingers brushed the edge, rough, jagged, still warm from the rip. I turned it over. Printed on it was an analytic geometry problem. The lines were clean, the equations precise, a problem I had solved 100 times before. I lifted my head, I looked straight at Jong Yao Yao, and then I smiled. The laughter on the bus continued, loud, cruel, careless, but Jong Yororo's smile froze, just for an instant, a flicker, because my reaction was wrong, completely wrong. A person who just had their admission ticket torn up shouldn't have this expression. They should cry, they should scream, they should beg, but I just smiled, and that smile said everything she didn't want to hear. What are you smiling at? Are you scared? Stupid. Jong Yao Yao squinted, her voice dripping with mockery. her eyes narrowing like a predator toying with its prey. I held up that piece of torn paper, letting her see the content clearly. My fingers were steady, my voice calm, too calm, like the stillness before a storm. Zhong Yao Yao. What you just tore up was my math practice test from last week. The laughter in the bus stopped abruptly, like someone had pressed the pause button. The air froze, the sudden silence was so thick it felt like a weight pressing down on everyone's chests. Even the engine seemed to hold its breath. I slowly stood up from my seat, the motion deliberate, unhurried. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, burning with curiosity and shock, from a spot close to my body, tucked securely, almost protectively. I pulled out the rolled-up admission ticket. I held it between two fingers, lifted it, and unfolded it in front of her, letting the paper catch the dim bus light. The admission ticket is right here. I paused, letting the words sink in, letting her see the truth. Thanks for helping me clean out my bag, I said, my tone flat, almost grateful. Saved me the trouble of throwing it away myself. Zhong Yaoyou's face turned white, not that metaphorical white, it was physical. The blood drained from her cheeks, making her lipstick look jarring and harsh, like a splash of red paint on a blank canvas. Her hand was still frozen in the tearing position, suspended in mid-air, fingers slightly spread, trembling as if she'd been caught mid-crime. You, her voice cracked, barely a whisper. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I raised my phone in my right hand, the screen facing her, the red in the upper left corner blinking steadily. A tiny, relentless heartbeat. Oh, and by the way, I recorded the entire process just now. Zhong Yaoyou's pupils sharply contracted. They shrank to pinpricks, her breath hitching, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow gasps, willfully destroying another person's college entrance exam credentials. Article 26 of the Public Security Administration Punishments Law, creating a disturbance, detention for 5 to 10 days. I paused, letting each word land like a hammer. Even though what you tore was a practice test, your original words were, tear up the admission ticket, your subjective intent is already established. The bus was so quiet you could hear the engine gasping. 47 pairs of eyes were fixed on the two of us, unblinking, waiting. The tension was a living thing, coiling around every seat, every breath. Zhong Yaoyou's lips trembled a couple of times, her voice changing pitch, rising into a desperate, brittle whine. Peijiu, what do you mean? I was just joking. Joking. I tilted my head, a slow, deliberate motion that let the word hang in the air. Last semester's final exams, you borrowed my physics notes and lost them. That was a joke. Last semester, you put laxatives in my water cup so I'd have diarrhea during the exam. That was also a joke. Today, you announce in front of the whole bus that you're going to tear up my admission ticket. Still a joke. With every word I said, Zhong Yaoyou's face grew paler, not because of guilt. No, her cheeks drained of color for a different reason entirely, because of fear. She was afraid of these things being brought to light, afraid of the truth spilling out into the open where everyone could see. Her eyes darted around the bus, searching for an escape that wasn't there. Zhong Yaoyou, you sure have a lot of jokes. I put my phone away, the screen clicking off with a soft sound that seemed too loud in the sudden stillness. I sat back down in my seat, the cushion creaking under my weight, and glanced at Hee-yoon. The smile on his face had already vanished, replaced by something raw and unguarded. In its place was a subtle tension. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down once, a nervous swallow, and his fingers unconsciously rubbed the edge of his phone case, back and forth, like a nervous tick. Hee-yoon, I called his name. The sound flat, unyielding. He turned his head, his mouth opening and closing, struggling to form words. Jiyu, Yao Yao, she, you just smiled. His mouth snapped shut, the words dying in his throat. When she announced in front of everyone that she was going to tear up my exam admission ticket, you were sitting right next to me, and you smiled. I let the silence stretch, watching his face flicker through a dozen emotions in a single heartbeat. I didn't. The bus has a dashcam. I pointed at the camera mounted above the windshield, my finger steady. Hee-yoon's gaze followed my finger, and his neck stiffened for a moment, a muscle twitching in his jaw as he realized the truth of it. I leaned back against the seat, the fabric cool against my neck, and watched the plane trees whizzing past outside the window, their leaves blurred into streaks of green and brown. Let's talk about it when we get to the exam hall. The bus fell into a silence as heavy as a funeral hall. No one dared to speak, not even a whisper. The air grew thick, pressing down on everyone's shoulders. Zhong Yao stood in the aisle, trapped, unable to move forward or back. At her feet lay the shredded pieces of paper she had torn up with her own hands, scattered like fallen leaves. She looked down at the fragments, her breath catching, as if finally confirming. The print on them was indeed not her exam admission ticket. Her hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white, nails digging into her palm from the reflection in the window glass. I saw her biting her lower lip, her teeth pressing so hard the skin turned white. Her fingernails dug deep into her palm, leaving crescent-shaped marks. When she returned to her seat, her knees buckled for just a second. A wobble that almost sent her sprawling. Someone reached out to steady her, but she shook them off, her arm jerking away like she'd been burned. Good. Step 1. Complete. I lowered my head and touched the admission ticket tucked securely in my inner pocket. The cardboard was warm, warmed by my body heat, its edges slightly curled from the pressure of my fingers. I pressed it flat, feeling the texture, the promise in my past life. Pei Jiu died at the bottom of a cliff, buried in a pile of jagged rocks, the cold seeping into broken bones. In this life, I will never give anyone a chance to push me again. Never. By the time the bus pulled up in front of Linjiang No. 1 High School, the sun was already directly overhead. A blazing white disk that made everything shimmer. The area outside the exam hall was a sea of people. Parents holding up parasols, their arms trembling from the weight, teachers shouting exam room numbers through megaphones, voices cracking, and vendors selling bottled water weaving through the crowd on tricycles. Their bells ringing. The cicadas were buzzing so loudly it made my scalp tingle, a constant, relentless drone that seemed to vibrate in my skull. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and stepped off the bus. My foot hit the scorching concrete, and the heat radiated up through the soles of my shoes, searing my feet. Zhong Yao got off before me. She kept her head down, walking quickly toward the exam hall gate, her ponytail swinging back and forth like a pendulum. But her steps lacked their usual lightness. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, like a cat that had just had its tail stepped on. Her spine curved inwards. The boys trailing behind her exchanged awkward glances, their eyes darting away, none of them daring to joke around anymore. The silence was thick. He-yun was the last to get off. He called out to me, "Jiu, wait up." I stopped walking but didn't turn around. I felt his footsteps approach, the crunch of gravel. "Those things you said on the bus, don't you think you're overreacting? Yoroiro's just like that. Careless and impulsive. Don't take it." "Don't take what?" I turned around, my eyes meeting his, cold and steady. He-yun's face tried to maintain a gentle expression, but beneath it lay a thin layer of irritation, a barely concealed crack in his usual composure. I knew that look all too well. In my past life, every time he spoke up for Zhong Yao, he wore that exact same face. I used to think it was kindness, a softness in his heart. Now I see it was just him finding me a nuisance, a burden he tolerated out of obligation. "He-yun, I have a question." "Go ahead." "If she had actually torn up my real admission ticket today, what would you have done?" He froze, his eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by the sudden shift in the air between us. "What would you have done?" I stared into his eyes, holding his gaze like a blade. "Would you have helped me get a replacement, or would you have just sat there and watched the show?" His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. A hesitation stretched the silence, but she didn't tear it. "Why do you have to?" "Enough." I cut him off, the word sharp and final. "He-yun, let's break up." His expression finally changed, not to sadness, but to shock, the kind of shock that said, "How dare you?" His jaw tightened, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "What did you say?" "Break up," I repeated, my voice so calm it felt foreign even to myself, like a stranger speaking through my lips. "From this moment on, we have nothing to do with each other." "Pei Jiu, have you lost your mind? Over something this small, something this small?" I looked at him, my gaze hardening as memories surged. On the cliffside in my past life, He wore the same righteous, indignant expression. Yao Yao only tore your admission ticket to make everyone laugh. Are you seriously going to call the police and ruin her whole life? Those were his exact words, echoing in my mind like a curse. In his world, my college entrance exam was something this small, while Zhong Yaoyou's feelings were a big deal. He-Yun, do you even know what it means for someone to have their admission ticket torn up? My voice dropped so low that only he could hear, each word weighted with 12 years of sacrifice. It means 12 years of hard work. Gone, completely wasted. But she didn't succeed because I was prepared for her. I took a step back, putting distance between us, the space feeling wider than any ocean. Not because she didn't want to tear it, and not because you stopped her. He-Yun's face flushed a deep, burning red, his lips parted, ready to retort, to say something, anything, but before the words could leave his mouth, the exam hall's broadcast cut through the air, sharp and commanding. Attention all examinees, there are 30 minutes until the first exam begins. Please enter the hall immediately. The announcement echoed across the campus. A mechanical voice that seemed to swallow the tension between us whole. I didn't hesitate. I turned and walked toward the exam hall, my footsteps steady against the concrete. Pei Jiu, He-Yun's voice cracked from behind me. Desperate, almost pleading. Calm down, we'll talk after the exam. Please, just wait. I didn't look back, I couldn't. My jaw tightened, my eyes fixed straight ahead, the weight of his words pressing against my back like a hand I refused to acknowledge as I stepped through the entrance of the exam hall. My gaze swept across a plane tree by the roadside, its leaves rustled faintly in the morning breeze. Standing beneath it was a person, a boy. He wore the same uniform from Linjiang No. 1 High School as I did, but his hadn't been altered. No rolled sleeves, no loose hem, it was buttoned all the way up to the top, neat and proper, almost painfully precise. In his hand, he clutched a bottle of water, the plastic squeezed out of shape, creased from his grip. He was looking at me, no, more accurately, he was looking at the direction behind me, where He-Yun was still standing. Shen Lang, from the class next door, ranked in the top 3 of the grade, someone who barely spoke to anyone, whose silence was as sharp as a blade. In my past life, my entire impression of him had been just the name that always appeared right next to mine on the monthly exam ranking lists, nothing more. When our eyes met, he furrowed his brow slightly, as if he was pondering something, a flicker of curiosity, or perhaps recognition, passing through his gaze. Then he lowered his head, unscrewed the cap of his water bottle with a soft twist, took a slow, deliberate sip, and walked away. His footsteps faded into the hum of the crowd. I didn't pay it any mind. I couldn't. This wasn't the time to be concerned about things like that, not when every second felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The exam hall stretched before me, vast and sterile, the air thick with the scent of old paper and floor wax. I found my seat without hesitation. Exam room 3, seat number 15. The desk surface was a map of peeling paint, its edges rough and unforgiving. My fingers, as if moved by a memory my mind hadn't yet caught up to, brushed against it. A tiny splinter bit into my skin. A single drop of blood welled up, perfectly round, a tiny crimson pearl suspended on my fingertip. I stared at it for 2 full seconds, my breath catching in my throat. In my past life, at this exact moment, my eyes had been swollen like walnuts, my hands trembling so violently I could barely grip a pen. I had spent 2 agonizing hours stopping a bus, my voice hoarse from screaming, my heart pounding as I begged the driver to let me off. Then, a desperate rush to get a replacement admission ticket. My legs burning, my lungs on fire, I had charged into this very exam hall with only 40 minutes left before the papers were due to be collected. 40 minutes. For that Chinese exam, I only managed to write 1 essay and answer 3 multiple-choice questions. The rest was blank. A testament to my shattered focus for the subsequent math, English, and comprehensive science sections. My mind was a constant, unbearable buzz. It was filled with the sound of Zhong Yaoyao tearing paper, the crisp, mocking rips echoing in my ears. It was filled with the jeers of the entire bus full of people, their laughter a chorus of humiliation. I remember my final score, 487 points, enough to get into an average second-tier university, a place I had never even considered. But my highest score on mock exams had been 673 points, a difference of a full 186 points. Those 186 points were not just numbers, they were the life that Zhong Yaoyao had torn apart, they were the dreams she had shredded, the future. She had stolen, not this lifetime. My hand stilled, the drop of blood now a faint smear on my skin. I took a slow, deliberate breath. This time, I was ready. The invigilator began handing out the test papers, the crisp rustle of paper slicing through the tense silence of the classroom. I took a deep breath, the air heavy with the scent of ink and anxiety, then picked up my pen. My eyes scanned the Chinese multiple-choice questions, each line a familiar ghost. The answers to 7 of them surfaced in my mind, not because I remembered the original questions, but because I remembered the answers my classmates discussed after the exam. In my past life, I had waited outside the exam hall for 2 long hours, the sun beating down on my back, and overheard everything, every whispered correction, every triumphant laugh. The essay topic: write an essay of no fewer than 800 words on the theme of looking back. The tip of my pen hovered above the answer sheet, pausing for 3 agonizing seconds. Looking back, a bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, a slow, involuntary pull. This topic felt like it was written just for me, a cruel joke from the universe. I began to write. My strokes were steady, each character falling onto the paper with even pressure, no erasures, no hesitation. Look back at what? Look back at the jeers of 47 people on that bus, their voices a chorus of contempt. Look back at the curve of He-Yun's lips, that mocking smirk that still haunted my dreams. Look back at the way Zhong Yaoyao raised her chin, a gesture of pure disdain. Look back at the sound of the wind at the edge of the cliff, a hollow roar that swallowed my last scream, and then crush every single one of them. My pen pressing harder, the ink bleeding into the page like a vow. When the bell rang for the end of the exam, its shrill cry echoing through the halls, my answer sheet was filled to the brim, every line a testament to my resolve. Walking out of the exam hall, the sunlight was so harsh it made me squint, forcing my eyes into narrow slits against the blinding glare. A crowd was waiting by the entrance. Parents, teachers, classmates, a sea of faces buzzing with anticipation. Zhong Yaoyao was standing under a tree, the dappled shade dancing across her shoulders, chatting with 2 girls, their laughter light and carefree. When she saw me come out, she pursed her lips and turned her face away, a deliberate dismissal. I didn't look at her, my gaze remained fixed ahead. On the path I had already chosen, Pei Jiu, a voice came from the side. I turned my head. Shen Lang was standing by the water dispenser, still holding that same deformed water bottle in his hand. The plastic was crushed in a way that looked almost intentional, like he'd been squeezing it for a while. Your hand is bleeding, he said. I looked down. The tiny wound from the desk splinter, the one I'd barely registered earlier, had smeared blood over half of my nail. A thin red line traced the edge of my cuticle, dark and sticky. I hadn't even noticed it myself. The sight of it made my stomach tighten for a split second. Thanks. He pulled a band-aid out of his pocket and handed it to me. The packaging had a little dinosaur pattern on it, a bright green stegosaurus with a cheerful face. I stared at it for a moment. He seemed to realize something too. A faint flush crept up to the tips of his ears, spreading slowly like ink on wet paper. My little sister stuffed it into my pocket. I took it. The paper crinkled under my fingers as I tore it open. The band-aid itself was soft, almost childish. I pressed it onto my fingertip, feeling the adhesive stick to my skin. The dinosaur stared back at me. How did the exam go? He suddenly asked. His voice was even casual, but there was something beneath it, a quiet curiosity. Not bad, he nodded. Then he hesitated for 2 seconds, as if weighing his words carefully. His jaw tightened slightly, then relaxed. About what happened on the bus. This morning, he said, I was sitting in the very last row. My fingers paused, the band-aid was half stuck to my skin, and I pressed it down slowly, buying myself a second to think. I saw everything, he said, including you switching out what was in your pocket beforehand. I lifted my head. Shun Lang's gaze was very direct, no probing, no prying, just stating a fact. His eyes were steady, like water in a still pond. There was no judgment in them, no accusation, only clarity. You were very calm, he said. It wasn't a compliment, it was an observation, like he was noting the weather or the color of the sky. You're not going to tell anyone, are you? I asked. My voice came out quieter than I intended. Why would I say something that has nothing to do with me? He screwed the cap back onto his water bottle with a soft click. The sound echoed in the hallway. Then he turned around and walked away. A small patch of sweat had soaked through the back of his uniform, clinging to his shoulder blades. The fabric was darker there, damp against his skin. I watched his retreating figure as he disappeared around the corner, and a thought surfaced in my mind. In my past life, Shen Lang went to Qingbei University, and I went to a second-tier college in a third-tier city this lifetime. It was time to take back what was mine. The first day of exams ended, and I didn't go home. Linjiang no. One high school had arranged for examinees to stay at a guest house next to the school, 2 people per room. My roommate was Wen-she from the class next door. Wen-she wore her hair in a low ponytail and round-framed glasses, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. She was the kind of girl who had almost no presence in the class, never stirred up trouble, never socialized, just kept her head down doing practice problems and lifted it only to eat. In my past life, I hadn't exchanged more than 3 words with her. Pei Jiu, do you want to shower first? She asked, standing by the door, holding a wash basin in her hand. You go ahead. She nodded, then closed the bathroom door. The sound of water began to flow. I sat on the edge of the bed, pulling out my phone. The video was still there, Zhong Yao Yao tearing up the paper, her chin lifted at that arrogant angle, the movement of her lips as she spoke, the shreds falling in a fluttering cascade. Every word she said was crystal clear. Oh, don't you guys hate that holier-than-thou act of hers? I tore up her exam admission ticket. Let's see how she pretends to be all high and mighty in the exam hall now. I saved 3 copies of the video on my phone's local storage on the cloud and sent one to a backup email. Then I opened my contacts, scrolling to a number, Pei Zhongwo, my father. In my past life, after I died, his hair turned white overnight. That piece of information had surfaced from fragmented memories after I came back, like some kind of data flooding into my brain in the last moments before death. Vague but undeniable. I didn't make that call, now wasn't the time. Ding. My phone vibrated, a WeChat message. Zhong Yao Yao, Pei Jiu, can we talk about what happened today? The video thing. I stared at the screen for 5 seconds. Her profile picture was a side-angle selfie, backlit, hair flowing, with a caption underneath reading "Shine the brightest star." I typed 4 words, nothing to talk about, sent. 3 seconds later, she started typing frantically. Zhong Yao Yao, don't be like this. Jiu, I was just joking, you know I'm carefree, no bad intentions. Zhong Yao Yao, can you delete that video? If this blows up during the college entrance exam, it's bad for both of us. Zhong Yao Yao, what do you want? I'll apologize. I'll even apologize publicly in the class group chat. 3 messages, each more urgent than the last. I could picture her now, sitting cross-legged on her bed, nails tapping the screen frantically, eyes fixed on the chat window, waiting for my reply. In my past life, at this moment, Zhong Yao Yao was already in the police station. In this life, she was still outside the exam hall, bargaining with me. I didn't reply. I flipped the phone over, screen down. The bathroom door opened. When she stepped out, towel drying her hair. Your phone kept buzzing, she said. Spam ads. She let out an "oh," not pressing further. I stood up and walked into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. The water rushed over my head, warm, flowing down through my hair, over my neck, my shoulders, my back. I closed my eyes. My mind began running through tomorrow's science comprehensive exam paper. In my past life, I scored 173 on the science section. A mess of wrong multiple choice answers, hands trembling so badly I couldn't hold the pen halfway through the big questions, but I remembered the direction of a few key problems. The last physics problem was about electromagnetic induction, heavy on calculations, designed to separate the top scorers from the rest. Chemistry had an organic inference question, Biology had a genetic probability problem. These fragments were scattered, but enough. I had memory, I had time, I had a mind 10 times sharper than in my past life. Steam filled the room, fogging up the mirror. I traced 2 characters on the mist with my finger, alive, then I wiped them away. The next day, mathematics. I sat in the exam hall, palms sweating as I received the paper. It wasn't nervousness, it was excitement. 12 multiple choice questions, for fill in the blanks, 6 big questions. I scanned the multiple choice section. The first 10 had no major surprises. The 11th question was about an ellipse's focal point. In my past life, the math teacher had gone over it on the blackboard after the exam, and I remembered the solution. The 12th was a new definition problem requiring on-the-spot deduction. I took a deep breath and spent 8 minutes solving it. The big questions progressed steadily. The final, most difficult problem, derivatives and inequalities. In my past life, I hadn't even finished reading it. In this life, I worked through from the first sub-question to the third, each step clear, logic airtight. As I put down my pen, my heartbeat was as steady as a metronome. 20 minutes remained until submission. I reviewed the entire paper, corrected 1 calculation error, then set my pen down and leaned back in my chair. The exam hall was silent except for the rustle of pens on paper and the hum of the air conditioner. In the 3rd row ahead, a boy was scratching his hair. To the right, by the window, a girl was wiping tears. I stared at the fluorescent lights on the ceiling. One of the tubes flickered faintly, irregularly. In my past life, when you pushed me down, did you ever ask if I deserved to live? The bell rang. Time to submit. As I walked out of the exam hall, the afternoon sun hit my face, warm and almost mocking in its brightness. I ran into Shenlang at the entrance. His expression still carried that perennial indifference, that cold, untouchable mask he always wore, but there was a faint, almost imperceptible relaxation between his brows, a subtle softening that only someone paying close attention would catch, the kind of look that said he had done well. My chest tightened slightly. Did you solve the 3rd sub-question of the last problem? He asked in a low voice as he passed by me, his tone flat, but his eyes flickering with a hint of curiosity. I paused, my heart beating a little faster. Yeah, scaling method, constructed an auxiliary function. His footsteps faltered for a moment, just a fraction of a second, but I noticed, he turned back to look at me, his gaze meeting mine directly. Same method as mine, he said, then he kept walking forward, his steps steady, his back straight. I stood there, frozen in place, watching his somewhat slender figure disappear into the crowd of students, swallowed by the chaos of laughter and shouts. A strange warmth spread through my chest. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against my thigh, pulling me back to the present. A message from Zhong Yao Yao. I pulled out the phone, the screen glowing in my hand. Zhong Yao Yao, Pei Jiu, what exactly do you want? Are you trying to mess with me after the college entrance exam? Let me tell you, don't go too far. I could almost hear her shrill voice in my head. Another buzz. Zhong Yao Yao, my dad knows people in the education bureau. If you dare to spread that video, I'll make sure you don't even get your graduation certificate. Her tone had changed, from flattery to threats, so fast, so desperate. I smiled to myself, a slow, bitter curve of my lips, and put my phone back in my pocket. The fabric rustled against my fingers. What's the rush, Zhong Yao Yao? The best is yet to come. I let out a soft breath, the air cool against my teeth. That afternoon when the final exam of the college entrance exam ended, the scene at the entrance of Linjiang No 1 High School was comparable to New Year's Eve. The air was thick with noise and emotion. Someone was throwing books down from the 5th floor. White papers swirling in the air like a belated blizzard, pages fluttering and tumbling in chaotic spirals. Some people were hugging and crying, their shoulders shaking, tears streaming down their faces. Others were holding up their phones and shouting at the sky, their voices raw with relief or anguish. A few just collapsed on the ground, unwilling to move, their bodies limp against the concrete, staring blankly at the clouds. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching it all, feeling a strange sense of calm in my chest, a stillness that felt foreign, yet comforting. In my previous life, I had stood here too, but my eyes were swollen, my mind was in a fog, and my fingers were still trembling. Not this time. I clenched my fists, feeling the strength in my palms. This time, I was ready. The air in the room was thick with tension, each breath a struggle against the invisible weight pressing down on his chest. He stood frozen, his eyes locked onto the figure before him, the words he had just heard echoing in his mind like a distant thunderstorm that refused to fade. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat that seemed to drown out all other sound. Yet he could still hear every syllable of her accusation, each one a sharp stone thrown into the still waters of his thoughts. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but the words caught in his throat, tangled with the raw emotion that surged upward like a tidal wave. His fingers twitched at his sides, a small, almost imperceptible movement, as if reaching for something, anything. To anchor himself in this moment of chaos, he took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the air fill his lungs, cool and sharp, before releasing it in a shaky exhale. The silence that followed was deafening, stretching out like a vast, empty desert, and in that emptiness, he felt the weight of her gaze, unwavering and piercing. "You don't understand," he finally said, his voice low and rough, as if the words had been scraped from the depths of his soul. He paused, letting the statement hang in the air, a fragile bridge between them. "I never meant for it to happen this way. I tried to protect you, to shield you from the truth. But the truth has a way of finding its own path, doesn't it?" His eyes searched hers, desperate for a flicker of understanding. But all he found was a wall of hurt and betrayal, solid and unyielding. She shook her head slowly, a bitter smile curling at the corners of her lips. "Protect me, you call this protection?" Her voice trembled, a fragile thread of anger and sorrow woven together. "You kept secrets, you built lies around me like a fortress, and now you expect me to believe that it was all for my own good." She took a step closer, and he could see the tears glistening in her eyes, unshed but threatening to spill. "I don't need your protection, I need the truth. I need you to trust me enough to share the burden, not to carry it alone." The words hit him like a physical blow, and he felt his defenses crumble, piece by piece, until he stood exposed and vulnerable. He had thought he was being strong, taking on the weight of the world so she wouldn't have to, but now he saw the cracks in that armor, the places where his silence had become a weapon instead of a shield. He reached out, his hand hovering in the space between them, hesitant, as if afraid that even the slightest touch might shatter what little remained of their connection. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the apology barely audible, yet it carried the weight of every unspoken regret, every sleepless night spent wrestling with his choices. "I was wrong. I thought I could handle it, that I could keep you safe by keeping you in the dark, but all I did was push you away." His hand finally closed the distance, his fingers brushing against her arm. A tentative gesture of reconciliation. "I don't expect you to forgive me, not yet, but I want to try. I want to be honest, even if it hurts, even if it means losing you." She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean into his touch either. She stood still, a statue of conflicted emotions, her breath shallow and uneven. The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in as the silence stretched on, pregnant with possibility and pain. He could see the battle raging within her, the war between her desire to trust him again and the fear of being hurt once more. And in that moment, he understood that this was not just about the truth he had hidden, but about the foundation of their relationship, the trust that had been shattered and the long, arduous road to rebuilding it. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the silence like a blade. "I don't know if I can believe you. I don't know if I can trust you again." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and hope, a fragile flame flickering in the darkness. "But I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to hear what you have to say. That's all I can offer right now." He nodded, a wave of relief and anxiety washing over him. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door left ajar, a chance to step into the light. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and began to speak, the words flowing from him like a river finally released from a dam. He told her everything. The secrets he had kept, the reasons behind his silence, the fears that had driven his actions. Each word was a brick laid on the path to redemption, and he hoped, with every fiber of his being. That she would walk that path with him. Pei Jiu, a voice cut through the crowd like a blade through silk. Hiyun squeezed his way out from among the sea of students, his school uniform stained with fluorescent marker marks from who knows where, a thin layer of sweat glistening on his forehead. He was breathing hard, chest heaving. Jiu, the exam's over. Can we talk properly? He walked up to me, catching his breath, his words tumbling out in a rush. When you said we should break up the day before yesterday, that was just you being too nervous, pre-exam stress. I get it. His tone was earnest, his gaze sincere, like he had rehearsed it countless times in front of a mirror. I looked at him, this face, these eyes, they had looked at me like this under the moonlight on the cliff edge too, except with an extra layer of disgust, a flicker of something cold that I had missed then but saw so clearly now. My heart tightened, then went numb. Hiyun, let me ask you something. Go ahead, he smiled, almost relieved, as if he thought this was just a test. In Zhong Yao's WeChat chat history, you two started saying goodnight to each other from the second year of high school. Is that true? His expression changed, like someone had slapped him awake, all color draining from his face. How did you? Is it true? His lips moved a couple of times, but no sound came out. His Adam's apple bobbed once, a nervous swallow. I stared at that subtle movement. I used to find it attractive, the way it moved when he laughed, when he whispered sweet nothings. Now it just annoyed me. A dull ache settled in my chest. You don't need to answer, I said, my voice flat. I don't care what you talked about, whether it was pouring out your hearts or making dinner and movie plans. It has nothing to do with me anymore, Jiu. But one thing, Hiyun. I stepped forward, close enough to see the fine beads of sweat on the bridge of his nose, the way his eyes darted nervously. When you were messing around with Zhong Yao behind my back, and at the same time telling me, you're the only one I like, did it make you sick? His face flushed a deep purple, his lips trembled, his jaw working as if trying to form words that wouldn't come. I didn't. Pei Jiu, don't talk nonsense. Fine, let me put it another way. I stepped back, putting distance between us. Whether there's anything between you and Zhong Yao or not, you know the truth. I don't need evidence, and I don't need an explanation, because starting today, who you are has nothing to do with me. I turned and walked away. Behind me came Hiyun's voice, desperate now. Pei Jiu, come back, let me explain. I didn't stop. Each step felt lighter, as if a weight I had carried for years was finally lifting. The crowd parted around me, and I walked on, not looking back. I walked out of the school gate, my footsteps echoing against the concrete, and then I turned into the narrow alley that ran alongside it. The air here was cooler, shaded from the afternoon sun. Someone was squatting at the base of the wall, Shen Lang. He was holding an ice pop, the frost melting slightly on his fingers. He took a bite, the crunch carrying in the stillness, and then looked up when he saw me. Your band-aid fell off, he said. I looked down. The little dinosaur band-aid on my finger was indeed peeling, half-curled and hanging loosely on my fingertip, the adhesive barely clinging. A flicker of surprise passed through me. What are you doing here, hiding from people? He took another bite of the ice pop, speaking indistinctly, the words muffled around the cold treat. It's too noisy inside. I can't take it. He reached into his school uniform pocket and pulled something out, handing it to me. Another band-aid, still with a little dinosaur pattern. My breath caught for a moment. How many do you have in your pocket? My sister thought I'd get hurt, so she stuffed a whole box in. The tips of his ears reddened again, a faint flush creeping up. I crouched down, my knees bending slowly, leaning against the wall, sitting side by side with him. The alley was quiet. From a distance, I could hear the cheers from the campus, muffled and distant, and the rustling of wind through the plane trees, their leaves brushing together. Shadows stretched diagonally across the wall, casting the silhouettes of both of us onto the brick wall opposite, dark and elongated. How did you do on the exam? He asked, his voice low. Shouldn't be bad, I replied. My tone even. A few seconds of silence stretched between us, the only sound the faint buzz of a distant cicada. The things you said to that person earlier. His popsicle was almost finished, just a wooden stick left, which he twirled between his fingers. the motion deliberate. I didn't mean to overhear. The soundproofing in this alley is terrible. He let out a soft, self-deprecating laugh. It's fine, I said, my gaze fixed ahead. You already knew about what he and Zhong Yaoyao were up to. I thought for a moment, the weight of the question settling in my chest. Sort of. He turned his head to look at me, his gaze very serious, piercing through the dim light. Putting things in your pocket early, knowing Zhong Yaoyao was going to tear up your exam ticket, knowing that guy was cheating on you behind your back. He paused, his voice dropping lower. Pei Jiu, exactly how much do you know? I met his eyes for 3 seconds. His eyes were very dark, like a deep well, impossible to see the bottom, but the surface was clear, reflecting a quiet intensity. A small hesitation flickered within me. You're overthinking it, I said, my voice steady but soft. He didn't press any further. Instead, he took the wooden stick and thrust it deep into the soil of the nearby flower bed. He patted the dust off his palms, once, twice, and then straightened up. Doesn't matter how much you know, he said, his tone flat but carrying a strange weight. It's got nothing to do with me anyway. That phrase again, it echoed in my ears like a stubborn refrain. He took 2 steps forward, then stopped. His back was to me, and he didn't turn around. But if you ever need help, his voice drifted back, slightly scattered by the wind. I only caught half of it. You can come to me too. Then he walked away. His footsteps faded, swallowed by the distant hum of the city. There was only me left in the alley. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy. Sunlight leaked through the narrow gap between 2 buildings, a slanted beam that landed on the surface of my shoes. I looked down. The white toe caps of my canvas shoes were dirty, stained with mud and dust, remnants of a long, hard road. I pulled down my sleeve and wiped the corner of my eye. I wasn't crying, it was sweat running into my eyes, or so I told myself. I opened my phone and navigated to the cloud drive. The video was still there, waiting. My finger hovered over the share button, pausing for 2 seconds. My heart thumped once, twice. A slow and deliberate rhythm. Not yet. I'll wait until the results come out. I'll make sure Zhong Yaoyao knows that what she tore up wasn't just a piece of paper, it was her own escape route. On the day the college entrance exam results were announced, I crouched on the steps at my doorstep. The numbers on my phone screen glared back at me, impossibly bright. Pei Jiu, total score, 689, provincial ranking, 27. My father, Pei Zhongwo, stood behind me, both hands gripped the doorframe so tightly. His knuckles went white. His neck stretched out like a giraffe, craning to see. How much? How much? Let me see. I handed him the phone without a word. His glasses slid down to the tip of his nose. He squinted for 5 seconds. 5 agonizing seconds, and then his whole body froze. Then a sound came from his throat. It was like a tire leaking air, a slow, hissing exhale. 689 His hands began to tremble. The phone nearly slipped from his grasp, but I caught it. Just in time, my reflexes sharp. Zhongwo, what's wrong? My mother, Chirue, burst out of the kitchen. Flour still dusted her apron, a white cloud clinging to the fabric. 600, speak clearly. 689, province ranking 27th. My mother's spatula dropped. It clattered against the floor tiles with a loud, hollow bang that seemed to echo through the entire kitchen. She shoved my father aside without a word, his shoulder bumping against the counter, then snatched the phone from my hand. She held it right up to her eyes, squinting, for 10 long seconds. Her breath caught, then she started crying. Tears fell one by one, smashing onto the phone screen like tiny explosions. She wiped them away with the back of her hand while laughing, repeating the same phrase over and over. My girls made it. My girls made it. My nose stung a little. I blinked, forcing the heat back. In my past life, this scene didn't exist. In my past life, I scored 487. When my father saw the score report, he didn't say a word, just sat there, smoking all night, the ash piling up like a silent accusation. My mother hid in the kitchen and cried, thinking I couldn't hear her muffled sobs through the wall. Later, they begged everyone they knew, found connections, borrowed money, and tried every way to let me retake the exam. Then I died. They never got to see me retake it. They never got to see this. I swallowed hard. Dad, Mom, her, they both looked over at the same time, their faces still wet, eyes wide. I want to apply to Qingbei's finance department. My mother cried again. This time, she was crying with laughter, a strange, beautiful sound that filled the room. Just then, my phone rang, a message popped up, lighting up the screen. Shen Lang, 693, what about you? I replied, 689. Shen Lang, not bad. I stared at those two words, and the corner of my mouth lifted slowly. You're just not bad. Just wait. Another message came through. It was the class group chat. The group was already in chaos. Notifications flooding in like a dam breaking. Pei Jiu 689. Holy crap. Pei Jiu ranked 27th in the province. Wasn't she usually in the 600s? How did she suddenly explode this time? Amazing. Her highest mock was 673. But she actually overperformed in the real exam. I scrolled down, my thumb moving lazily. I came across one post. Someone at Edjong Yao Yao. Yao Yao, how much did you get? 3 minutes passed, then 5 Zhong Yao Yao. For 63. The group went silent for 3 seconds. No one typed. No one reacted. Then someone weakly said, so, is it even close to the second tier cutoff? No one replied. The silence stretched, thick and awkward. I opened Zhong Yao's moments. Her latest post was from an hour ago. Scores don't mean everything. There's still a long road ahead. I let out a soft, quiet breath. The corner of my mouth curled just a little more. The attached picture was a cup of milk tea. Very few people had liked it. I exited moments and opened WeChat chat. Hiyun had sent me over a dozen messages, from congratulations to Jiyu. Can you please reply to me to are you still angry to I'm begging you, don't be like this. I scrolled through each one, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply to a single one, not a word, not even a glance at the keyboard. But I wasn't waiting for him, I wasn't waiting for anyone. That same night at 11 o'clock, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The lamplight shone on the keyboard, casting a soft glow across the keys. Outside the window, the cicadas chirped in waves, rising and falling like a restless tide. I downloaded the video from the cloud drive and edited it, keeping the complete footage of Zhong Yao Yao speaking, removing the unnecessary parts before and after. I watched it twice, then I wrote a paragraph. This happened on June 7th this year. On the bus heading to the exam venue for the college entrance exams, a certain school's beauty, Zhong Yao Yao, publicly tore up a classmate's admission ticket, which was actually a mock exam paper, and declared, let's see how she can pretend to take the exam now. The entire bus full of boys roared with laughter, and no one stopped her. The victim's boyfriend sat beside her throughout and didn't intervene. Fortunately, the victim had prepared in advance, otherwise 12 years of hard work would have been ruined. I read it twice, changed a few words, then I posted it on the largest local social forum, published, turned off the lamp, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My heartbeat was steady, my breathing was slow. In my past life, I called the police. In this life, I let everyone see. Zhong Yao Yao, you like performing in public, don't you? This time, the audience is a tiny bit bigger. The video had gone viral. I slept like a log that night, completely dead to the world. When I finally cracked my eyes open the next morning, the first thing I did was grab my phone. The post's read count had already exploded past 80,000. My thumb hovered over the screen, and then I saw it. The comment section was absolutely detonating. Damn, what the hell is wrong with this school beauty's mentality, tearing someone's admission ticket on the day of the college entrance exam? Are you kidding me? Isn't this outright criminal? At the very least, it's picking quarrels and provoking trouble. At worst, it's deliberately sabotaging a national exam. It's chilling to think about. The whole bus full of boys just laughing. Her boyfriend just stood there and watched the show. This class is completely messed up, right? That girl whose ticket was torn is amazing. She swapped it out in advance. Her awareness is off the charts. Seriously, that's next level. 689 points, 27th in the province. She's a real top student. Someone like her gets bullied by a school beauty. What kind of world is this? School beauty, 463 points. Top student, 689 points, laughing at someone for pretending to take the exam. Have you looked at your own score? The post got picked up by local media first, then it spread like wildfire to provincial media. By the time the afternoon rolled around, college entrance exam day, school beauty tears classmates' admission ticket had climbed all the way to number 18 on the trending list. I was just sitting on the sofa in my living room, legs curled up, sipping on the fresh watermelon juice my mom had squeezed for me. The ice cubes clinked against the glass as I watched the constant stream of notifications flood my phone screen. Zhong Yao Yao called me 17 times. I didn't answer a single one. Each buzz was a vibration I let fade into silence. Hyun called 9 times. Also didn't answer. I just kept drinking my juice, letting the sweetness settle on my tongue, feeling the weight of every missed call like a small victory. The first call I picked up was from the homeroom teacher, Liu Ming. Pei Jiu, have you lost your mind? Liu Ming's voice burst out of the earpiece, sharp and crackling like static, and I had to move the phone a little farther away, my ear still ringing from the force of it. Was that video online posted by you, Teacher Liu? I posted the facts. Facts? Do you realize this has already reached the principal's office? The education bureau even called. Zhong Yao Yao tore the admission ticket, not me. But you stirred this up online after the exam. You're trying to ruin Zhong Yao Yao. How is she supposed to face people from now on? My fingers tightened around the phone, the plastic creaking under the pressure. Teacher Liu, when she tore my admission ticket, did anyone think about how I was supposed to face people? There was silence on the other end of the line, a long, heavy silence that seemed to stretch into the room around me. When she said, let's see how she can pretend to take the exam now, did anyone stop her? When the whole bus full of boys laughed, did anyone think it was wrong? When you found out about this, was it just now, or did someone tell you the same day? The silence stretched on, thicker now, like a held breath. Teacher Liu, if that day it hadn't been a mock paper but the real admission ticket, my life would have been ruined. If it were ruined, who would take responsibility? You, the school, or Zhong Yaoyoro's? Just kidding. Liu Ming's voice shrank, the words trailing off into a whisper. Pei Jiu, I'm not saying she was right. But what you're doing now, the impact is too big. Impact too big. My voice didn't rise. Instead, it softened, down to just a breath, barely audible, like a leaf falling onto still water. Teacher Liu, what about the impact of having your college entrance exam admission ticket torn? The call ended. Liu Ming hung up first. I set my phone on the coffee table, the screen still glowing faintly, and took a sip of watermelon juice. It was very sweet. The cool liquid sliding down my throat, washing away the last trace of tension. At 3 in the afternoon, Zhong Yaoyoro's mother, Wang Meiji, brought Zhong Yao Yao to my doorstep. My mom opened the door. Wang Meiji was dressed in a full set of designer clothes, gold bracelets clinking on her wrists, a sound that seemed to announce her arrival. She stepped inside, and before she even spoke, her eyes were already red-rimmed. Sister this is all just a little thing between kids. Yao Yao said she was wrong. She'll apologize to Jiu. Behind her mother, Zhong Yao Yao stood still. Her eyes were swollen, not from a sleepless night, but from crying, the kind of swelling that made the skin around her eyes puffy and tight. When she looked at me, her gaze was complicated. There was hatred, yes, a sharp, bitter edge, but also fear, a flicker of something fragile, and beneath it all, a trace of reluctance, as if part of her didn't want to be here at all. Pei Jiu, she said. Her voice squeezed out like air from a collapsing lung. Each word seemed to contain shards of glass, cutting her throat on the way out. I apologize to you. I'm sorry, it was my fault. A pause. She swallowed, her throat bobbing visibly. Can you delete the video? I looked at her. In my past life, at the police station, she was detained for 5 days. After she got out, she didn't take the college entrance exam. Her life's trajectory shifted from that day, like a river diverted by a single stone. But that incident directly led Hyun to develop murderous intent toward me. In his eyes, I had ruined Zhong Yaoyoro's life, so he enacted justice on behalf of heaven. He saw himself as a hero, a savior, a righteous blade in this life. I didn't need to get her detained. I had another way, a quieter way, a way that would leave no trail leading back to me. Zhong Yao Yao. I accept your apology. Her eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, a fragile, trembling light. But I'm not deleting the video. That light died out, snuffed like a candle in a sudden gust. This is a factual record, not defamation, I said, my voice steady. You did those things, and they deserve to be seen. Pei Jiu, you. Wang Meiji's face twisted, her lips curling into a snarl, and I cut her off, not giving her a chance to finish. Your boss's construction materials business. Isn't it currently bidding on a municipal project? Wang Meiji's face went pale instantly. The color drained from her cheeks like ink washed away by water. Getting on the trending list at a time like this, it should have quite an impact on the bid. Right, my tone was calm, as if I were discussing the weather, but the air in the room had grown thick, heavy with unspoken threat. Wang Meiji's hands began to tremble, her gold bracelets clinked together, producing a faint, crisp sound, a tiny, nervous percussion. You, what do you want? I don't want anything. I stood up, the chair scraping softly against the floor. I walked to the door, my footsteps deliberate, and opened it. I'm just stating a fact. What Zhong Yao Yao did is written clearly online. As for how you handle it, that's your own business. But there's one rule. If you dare come after me, come after my parents, or use any means to threaten or retaliate against me. This video, along with all the evidence of the bullying Zhong Yao Yao subjected me to over the past 3 years at school, will be released all at once. Zhong Yao's lips were trembling, her hands clutched the hem of her skirt, her knuckles white as bone. Pei Jiu, you weren't like this before. Before, I tilted my head, a ghost of a smile on my lips. The Pei Jiu from before is already dead. When I said those words, even I was stunned for a moment, because it was the truth in my past life. Pei Jiu had indeed died at the bottom of a cliff. Standing here now was another Pei Jiu, one who wouldn't be pushed off again. Wang Meiji dragged Zhong Yao Yao away. The moment the door clicked shut, I heard it. Zhong Yao's breakdown erupting in the hallway. It wasn't just crying, it was that kind of suppressed, long-held sobbing finally giving way, snot and tears mixing together, her breath spasming in broken, ragged gasps. The sound echoed off the walls, raw and unfiltered, a confession of guilt that words couldn't carry. My mother stood in the living room, looking at me, her hands still dusted with flour, the apron tied loosely around her waist. She hesitated to speak. Jiu, aren't you being too harsh? Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, laced with the tenderness only a mother could have. I turned to face her. Mom, I let the silence hang for a moment, feeling the weight of the question pressing down on me. What if that day she had torn my actual exam admission ticket? My mother's eyes widened slightly, her mouth opening as if to respond, but no words came. What if I couldn't get a replacement in time? What if I missed the college entrance exam? I saw her eyes redden, the moisture gathering at the corners. What if? My voice dropped low, almost inaudible, barely a breath escaping my lips. What if she had done more than just tear my ticket? My mother didn't understand the implication of the second half of that sentence. She couldn't know the depths of what I'd survived, what I'd carried from another life. But she didn't need to understand. She reached out and pulled me into her arms, flour smeared across my face, white dust clinging to my cheek. She smelled of laundry detergent and scallions, a scent so ordinary, so grounding, it anchored me to the present. I closed my eyes, burying my face in her shoulder. The fabric of her apron was warm against my skin. It had been so long since I'd felt this. In my past life, when I died, I didn't even leave behind a single hug, no warmth, no farewell, just cold silence. But now, in her arms, I let myself breathe. The trending topic blazed across the internet for 3 days straight. Each day, the heat grew. Like a wildfire I had no control over. But on the third day, the course of events took a turn that even I couldn't have predicted. It all started with an anonymous user, someone claiming to be a graduate of Linjiang No. 1 high school's class of 2024 posted a long comment under the thread. The words scrolled across my screen, each sentence landing like a hammer blow. I was on that bus too. I want to add a few things. My breath caught. I leaned closer, my eyes devouring every word. 1. Zhong Yao didn't just target Pei Jiu this once. In the first semester of senior year, she borrowed Pei Jiu's physics notes and accidentally lost them. Those notes were compiled over an entire semester, every page, every formula, every annotation, gone. I felt my fingers tighten around the phone. 2. The night before the final exams in the second semester of senior year, someone put laxatives in Pei Jiu's water bottle. Pei Jiu spent the entire exam running to the bathroom. No one found out who did it at the time, but looking back now, the timing was too convenient. A cold shiver ran down my spine. 3. Most importantly, the relationship between Zhong Yao and Pei Jiu's boyfriend, He-Yoon, was more than just ordinary classmates. What kind of relationship, exactly? The parties involved know best. This comment received over 2,000 likes. I stared at the screen, my fingers frozen in midair, my mind raced. I didn't write this, someone was helping me. The phone rang, cutting through my thoughts like a blade. I glanced at the caller ID, Shen Lang. I picked up immediately, my voice tight. Did you see that anonymous comment on the forum? A beat of silence on his end. Then, calmly, I saw it. Was it you who posted it? Another second of silence, longer this time. Then, no, but I know who it was. Who? When sure. The name hit me like a wave. The girl I roomed with during the college entrance exams. The one whose voice was as soft as a mosquito's, barely above a whisper. The one who always kept her head down, her eyes glued to her books. That when sure, she was sitting in the second to last row of the bus, Shen Lang said, his voice flat but deliberate, 1 row behind me. She watched the whole thing. Why would she help me? I asked, my voice barely steady. You should ask her that yourself. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone in my hand, my heart pounded. I found Wenxia's WeChat. In my past life, we never added each other as friends, but in this life, we did. When we stayed at the guest house during the exams, I typed the message, my thumbs trembling slightly. That anonymous comment on the forum. Was it you? I pressed send. 3 minutes passed. Each second felt like an eternity. Then, a reply. When sure, it was me. I stared at the screen for a long time. The words hung there, suspended in the cold blue light, and I couldn't look away. Asterisk in my past life, no one stood up for me. Asterisk that was the truth. It wasn't that no one saw, it was that no one dared. They saw everything. The bullying, the humiliation, the slow erosion of my dignity, and they turned their heads. They chose silence, they chose safety. But here, in this life, someone had finally spoken. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed 3 words. Asterisk thank you. Asterisk. Then I added another line. My breath caught in my throat as I pressed each key. Asterisk you don't need to apologize. The one who should apologize isn't you. Asterisk. I hit send. The message posted. And I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding against my ribs. When Wenxia's anonymous comment ignited a second wave of public opinion. It spread like wildfire, faster than the first, hotter, more dangerous, spiking someone's cup with laxatives. That wasn't just petty bullying, that was vicious, more vicious than tearing up an exam admission ticket, because this involved personal safety. This involved harm. A legal blogger came out to analyze, their voice sharp and precise. Dropping laxatives into someone else's cup, if the circumstances are minor, it can be classified as creating a disturbance. If it causes physical harm, it could potentially be intentional assault. The comment section erupted. They started digging into Zhong Yao's family background. Her father, Zhong Deming, was in the building materials business. He had some local fame. He had donated a library to Linjiang No 1 high school. Asterisk no wonder the school covered for her all the time. Asterisk. Asterisk donate a bit of money and your daughter can walk all over the school. Asterisk. Asterisk the key point is her boyfriend, He-Yoon, watching his own girlfriend's admission ticket get torn up in front of him and not saying a word. That's the kind of man who deserves to be in a relationship. Asterisk. He-Yoon was exposed. His social media accounts were quickly flooded. Comments poured in like a tidal wave. Someone screenshot photos from his moments. Photos of him with Zhong Yao. They were all group shots, but in a few of them, their stances were ambiguous. Arms brushing against arms, Bodies leaning too close, the internet did what the internet does best, it tore them apart, solid proof. Right, two-timing and helping the mistress bully the real girlfriend, trash like this, better. He spontaneously combust, Hyun panicked. I could feel the tremor in his fingers as he typed, a desperate scramble of words flooding my screen. He sent me a long WeChat message, Hyun, Jiu, I swear, yao yao, and I don't have the kind of relationship you're thinking. Those group photos were from class activities. Everyone had photos with everyone. Those people on the forum are taking things out of context. You can't believe them, Hyun. Can you come out and let us talk face to face? I really care about you. Don't say things about breaking up so carelessly. Okay, Hyun, please, Jiu, give me one chance to explain. I read it all, every single word. My eyes traced each character slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the bitter taste of his lies. Didn't reply in my past life. During the graduation trip, he tricked me to the edge of a cliff. His reason was, you ruined Yaroiro's life. Back then, he didn't even bother to pretend anymore. No mask, no excuses, just cold, raw hatred this time. Around, you're still putting on quite the act. I almost laughed. Almost. I closed the chat window and opened my notes app. My thumb hovered for a moment before I wrote 2 words on it. Graduation trip in my past life. The graduation trip was set for mid-July. The whole class went Dutch to Yunding Mountain. The cliff on that mountain was called Wangxiantai. I died there, my body shattered on the rocks below, my last breath stolen by the wind in this life. I won't die, but I have to go, because if I don't, Hyun won't reveal his true face. I need him to admit it himself. I need evidence, not to post online, to send him to. The phone screen dimmed. My face reflected on the black surface, blurry and indistinct. That face was smiling, a smile that didn't reach the eyes, cold and sharp like a blade waiting to strike. When the notice for signing up for the graduation trip was posted in the class group chat, Zhong Yao Yao didn't sign up. The reason was obvious. She was now a trending topic nationwide. She was afraid of being recognized. Even walking down the street, but Hyun signed up. Jiu, are you going? He asked me on WeChat. His tone was cautious, like walking on broken glass, each word fragile, as if the slightest pressure would shatter the act. I replied, yes. His message came back instantly. Hyun, great. Then we can talk properly when the time comes. I stared at the screen, my fingers tightened around the phone. Oh, we'll talk, but not the way you think. I stared at that line for 3 seconds, my breath hitched, just barely, as my fingers slid across the screen, each tap deliberate, measured. I typed my reply, Peijiu, just 1 word, a single syllable, but I knew it would be enough to make him happy, enough to seal his fate. 3 days before departure, I went to the electronics market in the south of the city. The air smelled of soldering iron and plastic. I bought a voice recorder, very small, only as long as a thumb, clipped inside the collar of my shirt. It was completely invisible. I also bought a pinhole camera and stuck it onto a button, the lens no bigger than a pinprick. I went home and tested them in my room for half an hour. The recording was clear, crisp as a bell. The video was 720p, and the battery lasted 6 hours. That was enough. More than enough. Then I called Shen Lang. My thumb hovered over the dial button for a moment before I pressed it. The line clicked open. Are you going on the graduation trip or not? No. His voice came through the receiver, tinged with a hint of confusion. I could almost see him frowning on the other end. What's so fun about Cloud Summit Mountain? I'm afraid of mosquitoes. Go. What? His tone sharpened, a note of surprise creeping in. Do me a favor. 3 seconds of silence, the kind of silence that stretches, that breathes. What favor? You'll know when the time comes. I'll send you a location. After you get it, I need you to make a call. Who to? 110. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, so long that I thought he'd hung up. I pulled the phone away from my ear, checked the screen. Still connected. Then his voice returned, changed, dropped low, pressing down on some emotion I couldn't identify. Anger, fear, concern. Peijiu, the way he said my name, slow and heavy. What are you doing? Doing something I didn't have time to do in my last life. The words came out flat, matter of fact, but inside, my chest tightened. What does that mean? Literal meaning, another stretch of silence. Longer this time, I could hear him breathing, shallow and controlled. Then he said something that caught me off guard, something that made my heart skip. I'll go with you. I blinked. Aren't you afraid of mosquitoes? I'll bring mosquito repellent. He hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I stared at the phone screen for a while. Lost in thought, the black glass reflected my own face back at me. Expressionless, but my mind was churning. This guy in my last life, Shen Lang, and I studied at the same school for 3 years without ever exchanging a single word, not one. In this life, he'd put 2 little dinosaur band-aids on me, noticed me switching pockets on the bus, and now he wanted to go up a mountain with me. What kind of person was he? Really, what did he want? I shook my head, the motion sharp, and stopped thinking about it. There was no time, no room for distractions. On the day of departure, July 15th, the weather forecast had said partly cloudy, turning overcast, and as if to prove it right, the sky was already beginning to sulk, a thin grey veil pulling across the morning sun. The bus, another bus, just like the ones that had carried us through so many field trips before, was parked at the entrance of Linjiang one high school. Not many people were going, just over 20. After that trending topic incident, the class atmosphere had shifted, and a lot of people didn't want to have anything to do with the person involved anymore. I could feel their eyes slide past me, then quickly away. The silence was heavier than any accusation. Hee-yoon had already snagged a window seat early. When he saw me getting on, his face lit up, and he waved eagerly, his arm cutting through the stale air of the bus. "Ji-yu, over here, I saved you a seat." His voice was bright, almost desperate. I paused for just a fraction of a second. My gaze met his, and I saw that familiar, hopeful smile. Then I turned away. I glanced at him, let the silence stretch just a beat too long, and walked to the very back row. I sat down next to Shen Lang. I didn't look back, but I could feel it. Hee-yoon's hand, still raised in that wave, hanging in the air for a moment before slowly, painfully, lowering. The sound of it dropping was louder than any word he could have said. Shen Lang was wearing a dark blue windbreaker, the fabric stiff and new. His pants pocket was bulging. I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye, a bottle of mosquito repellent and half a box of band-aids. Their edges worn. "Your little sister stuffed those in again?" I asked, my voice flat. He had no extra expression, but the tips of his ears turned red, a deep, spreading flush that betrayed him completely. I almost smiled. Almost. The bus drove for 2 hours, the engine a low, steady hum that vibrated through the seats. It arrived at the foot of Cloud Summit Mountain. The mountain wasn't tall, but it was treacherous, especially the stretch at Immortal's viewing terrace. The plank path was narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass, with a cliff on one side and a deep valley on the other. The air was thin up there, cold even in summer. In my last life, that was where Hee-yoon had made his move. At 4 in the morning, "Let's go watch the sunrise." His smile, soft under the moonlight, had been heartbreakingly tender. I had held his hand tightly, completely without suspicion. I had trusted him with everything. This life was different. I knew exactly where the edge was, and I had no intention of falling again. By the time we reached the mountain guest house and finished dividing up the rooms, it was already evening. The air was thin and cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. I slipped into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands were steady as I clipped the voice recorder into the inner collar of my shirt, pressing it flat against my collarbone. I secured it with a band-aid, smoothing the edges so it wouldn't rustle. The pinhole camera was hidden in the buckle of my backpack strap, tiny, almost invisible. I tested the angle with a subtle tilt of my shoulder. Perfect. No one would notice. After dinner, there was a bonfire party. Someone played guitar, the chords echoing off the surrounding cliffs. Some drank, their laughter rising and falling like the flames. Some played cards, the slap of paper against wood punctuating the night. I stood apart, watching the fire twist and dance. Hee-yoon sidled up to me, holding 2 cans of beer. The condensation dripped from his fingers. "Ji-yu, want one?" His voice was casual, but his eyes held a flicker of hope. I took it but didn't open it. The metal was cold in my palm. the surface beaded with moisture. He sat down on the rock next to me, the firelight flickering across his face, bright then dim, shadows carved hollows under his cheekbones. Jiu, I'm really not the kind of person you think I am. His voice dropped low, carrying a pleading softness. Yao Yao and I are just friends. She's lively, like that with everyone. Don't misunderstand. He leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine. I felt the heat from his body, the urgency in his breath. I stared at the bonfire. The wood crackled as it burned, sparks leaping out, tracing tiny arcs in the night sky before dying out. Each spark was a small death. He-Yun, tomorrow morning. Do you want to take me to watch the sunrise? My voice was flat, but my heart pounded against the recorder hidden in my collar. His eyes lit up, the fire caught the glint in them, turning them amber. You're willing to go with me? He almost laughed, the relief spilling out of him. I heard that at Immortal's viewing terrace, you can see a sea of clouds. I let the words hang, watching his expression soften. Great, I'll come get you at 4. His tone was so excited his voice cracked. He clapped his hands together, the sound sharp in the night air. My fingers squeezed the beer can, the metal dented slightly under the pressure, the cold seeping into my bones. Tomorrow. Everything would end tomorrow. The fire popped, sending a shower of embers skyward. They glowed like tiny stars before fading into darkness. Okay, I said. The alarm blared at 3:50 in the morning, but the truth was, I hadn't slept a single second, all night long. I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the wooden beams stretching across the ceiling. The guest house had terrible soundproofing. I could hear someone snoring in the next room, insects chirping away downstairs, and every now and then, strange bird calls drifted in from somewhere far off in the darkness. I turned over slowly, pushed myself up, and reached for the voice recorder. I switched it on and tucked it carefully into the inner layer of my shirt. Then I checked the angle of the pinhole camera, pointed straight ahead, just right. Battery at 87%. That would be enough. After that, I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Shenlang. Pei Jiu, 400 sharp, Immortal's viewing terrace. After you get the location, call 110. Tell them someone is attempting murder. Once the message was sent, I stared at it for a long moment. I took a deep breath, slow, deliberate, and then switched my phone to silent mode. The knock came exactly at 4 o'clock. Jiu, He-Yun's voice was low, barely a whisper, careful not to wake anyone else. I pulled the door open. He stood there in the hallway, wearing a grey coat, his hair a little messy but still handsome. When he smiled, you could see his 2 canine teeth. 3 years, I had loved that face for 3 years. 3 months later, no, 3 months later in my past life, that same face would say to me, you don't deserve to live in this world. The canine teeth would still show, but the smile would have twisted into something else entirely. Let's go, he said. The mountain path at night lay coiled like a serpent in slumber. The flashlight beam struck the gravel road, bouncing and jittering, casting restless shadows. We walked for 20 minutes and arrived at Wangxian Terrace. This was a massive stone platform jutting outward into the void. Cliffs on 3 sides, only one side connected by a narrow plank path. Standing at the edge, I looked down into absolute darkness. Nothing could be seen. Only the wind surged up from the valley floor, pouring into our collars, icy cold, piercing to the bone. He-Yun walked to the center of the platform and turned off the flashlight. The moonlight was dim, mostly veiled by clouds. Dawn is almost here, he said. The direction of the sunrise is to the east. You have to stand at the edge to see it clearly. He walked toward the cliff's edge, then he turned back to look at me. Come over here. I didn't move, my feet felt rooted to the stone, a cold dread coiling in my chest. He-Yun's silhouette stood against the dark sky, waiting. Jiu. His voice carried a hint of impatience, a thin veneer over something else. He-Yun, how long have you been with Zhong Yao Yao? In the darkness, I couldn't see his expression clearly, but I saw his shoulders stiffen, a sudden, barely perceptible tension. What do you mean? Here you go again. You lured me to the cliff's edge just to get back at her, didn't you? The air froze, the sound of the wind drilled into my ears, hissing, like a snake flicking its tongue in the blackness. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, 5 long, agonizing seconds. Then He-Yun laughed. That laugh was completely different from before, no longer gentle, no longer ingratiating. It was a dry, chilling sound, squeezed from the bottom of his throat, like gravel grinding against bone. How did you know? His voice had changed. It was as if a mask had been peeled away, revealing the raw skin beneath. When did you find out? That's not important, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. I just want to hear you say it yourself. He was silent for a few seconds, then he let out a long, deep sigh. In that sigh, there was no pretense, no acting, it was real, a relieved exhale, like an actor who had performed for too long finally taking off his makeup, shedding the weight of 1,000 lies. He took a step toward me. Fine, you want to hear it, I'll say it. His voice was flat, eerily calm, like reciting lines he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. Pei Jiu, do you know what the most unbearable thing about you is? He paused, letting the silence stretch. It's your self-righteousness. Another step. The gravel crunched under his shoes. You think the whole world should follow your rules. You think Zhong Yao Yao tearing up your exam admission ticket was an unforgivable crime. You think scoring 689 makes you superior to everyone else. His tone didn't waver, but his eyes sharpened. You look down on everyone from your moral high ground. He took a breath, slow and deliberate. But have you ever considered that Yao Yao is also a person, that she also feels wronged? A flicker of something, anger, pain, crossed his face. She's been forced by her father her whole life to get first place in exams. If she didn't, she got beaten. In front of you, she's always the school beauty, always smiling. Do you know how many times she's cried behind your back? He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. She was jealous of you. Yes, she did something she shouldn't have. Yes. But you had to take things to the extreme, calling the police, posting videos, making it a trending topic. You left her no way out. He took another step. The distance between us shrank. I could smell the faint scent of sweat and earth on him. Couldn't you have just let her off? Couldn't you have just pretended nothing happened? I felt the chill of the void behind me against my back, the cliff's edge, less than 3 meters away. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. So what's your conclusion? I asked. He stopped. The moonlight shifted, casting half his face in shadow. My conclusion is, his voice dropped, suddenly cold as winter steel. Someone like you doesn't deserve an apology. He raised his hand. Moonlight leaked through a gap in the clouds, shining on his fingers. That hand reached forward, 5 fingers spread wide, just like in the past life, pushing toward my shoulder. I sidestepped to the left. His hand grasped at empty air, a clawing, desperate swipe that found nothing. The momentum carried his body half a step forward, almost making him stumble off the edge himself. He hurriedly stepped back, the heel of his foot catching on a rock, scraping against stone. Pei Jiu, his voice had changed, a mix of anger, panic, and shock, raw and ragged in the night air. I stood 3 meters away, watching him. The voice recorder was running. The camera was recording. Enough, I said. Then I pulled out my phone from my pocket and pressed the location share button. Sent. The screen glowed briefly before dimming. What are you doing? He-Yun's voice pitched higher, cracking at the edges. Every word you just said, every move you just made, has been recorded. His face changed. Color in the moonlight, first pale, then flushed with a sickly hue. The voice recorder is in my collar. The camera is on my backpack. It's been recording the whole time. From the moment you knocked on my door and called me out, He-Yun's mouth fell open, like a fish dragged onto the shore, gasping for air that wouldn't come. You tried to push me off the cliff. He-Yun. My voice was so steady it surprised even myself, a calm that felt foreign on my tongue. That's called attempted murder. I didn't. He began to back away, step by step, his voice trembling, each word a stutter. I was just scaring you. I just wanted to scare you. Just scare me. The motion of you reaching out to push me was just a scare too. My words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Don't talk nonsense. The sound of an engine came from afar, then light, a beam from a flashlight cut through the darkness from the end of the plank road, piercing the night like a blade. Here, over here, Shen Lang's voice. He was running at the front. the zipper of his windbreaker undone, the hem flapping wildly in the wind. Behind him followed two people in uniforms, police. After receiving my location, Shen Lang hadn't just made a phone call, he had come up himself. Footsteps pounding against the wooden planks, breath misting in the cold air. The moment Hiyun saw the police, it was as if every single bone had been yanked out of his body. His knees buckled, first one, then the other, and slowly, inch by inch, he sank to the ground. His hands trembled, fingers splayed against the cold pavement. I really didn't. She's framing me. His voice cracked, breath hitching, words tumbling out in a frantic, desperate rush. Hiyun, the police officer's hand pressed down on his shoulder. Firm and unyielding, you have the right to remain silent, but anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Finally, a layer of moisture surfaced in his eyes. It wasn't guilt, it was fear, pure, stripped bare of all pretense fear. His whole body shook with it, a tremor that started in his core and radiated outward, rattling his limbs. He was scared that he would have to pay the price, scared that the game was finally over. Jiyu, help me. He reached his hand out toward me, fingers clawing at the air, his voice choked with sobs. We've been together for 3 years. You can't do this to me. I stood where I was, the wind funneled into my sleeves, cold and biting, gnawing at my skin. I didn't move, I didn't flinch. Hiyun, a flicker of light appeared in his eyes, as if he had grabbed onto a lifeline. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered in that gaze. In my last life, when you pushed me off, the last words you said were, "You don't deserve to live in this world." His face completely collapsed, the hope shattered like glass. What are you talking about? His voice cracked, high and thin. What last life? Are you crazy? Maybe, I said with a faint smile, the corners of my lips lifting just barely. But in this life, the one who doesn't deserve to live isn't me. Shen Lang walked over to me. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, like a wall that wasn't very tall but was solid enough to block the wind. I felt his sleeve brush against the back of my hand, a whisper of fabric, a ghost of contact. The touch was warm. My fingers trembled uncontrollably, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. Hiyun was taken away. As he left, he looked back once, under the moonlight. His face was as white as paper, tears and snot smeared all over it, his lips constantly twitching as if muttering something. I didn't catch it, and I didn't want to. The sky began to turn pale on the horizon. Sunrise. A sea of clouds surged up from the valley, golden light slowly dyeing the skyline red. Your hands are shaking, Shen Lang said. Scared, a little. He pulled something out of his pocket, a band-aid, with a little dinosaur pattern on it. You don't have a cut on your hand, I said, just in case. He pressed the band-aid into my palm, turned around, and faced away from me, watching the sunrise. The tips of his ears were red, as if they were burning. I held that crumpled band-aid in my hand, standing on Wangxian platform, watching the sun slowly rise from behind the clouds. In my last life, I fell from here. In this life, I stand here, watching the light spread across the entire valley. The wind blew over, carrying the scent of pine needles and earth. I took a breath. It was very cold, but the feeling of being alive rushed into my lungs, filling every corner. My eyes burned. I didn't cry, I just smiled, a faint, trembling smile that pulled at the corners of my lips, as if testing whether I was still real. The warmth of the band-aid in my palm was a small, absurd anchor against the weight of everything. Hiyun was detained. The charge was attempted murder. The recordings and videos were ironclad evidence. His monologue, the motion of his hand as he reached out to push, and his panicked excuses after being stopped, every frame, every second pointed to the same fact. The Procuratorate initiated a public prosecution against him on suspicion of intentional homicide. When the news spread back to Linjiang No. 1 high school, the entire school fell silent. That silence wasn't calm, it was the aftershock after a tremor. Everyone was digesting the information, then quietly re-examining their own memories. Hiyun, Yun who was always smiling every day, he tried to kill Pei Jiu, just because of that video incident. No way, wasn't he Pei Jiu's boyfriend? You haven't heard, him and Zhong Yao Yao rumors and whispers floated through the air like scraps of paper, each one a sharp edge cutting through the stunned quiet. I didn't listen to them. I was at home, packing my things. My hands moved mechanically, folding clothes, stacking books, but my mind was elsewhere, back on that platform, feeling the wind, the cold, the warmth of a band-aid that meant more than anyone would ever know. The admission letter arrived, Finance Department of Qingbei University, red background, black characters, the gilded school name shimmering in the sunlight. Each letter seemed to burn with a quiet, triumphant fire. When my father took it with both hands, his fingertips were trembling, as if the paper itself was too precious to hold. My mother stood beside him, her apron still tied on, a dusting of flour on her cheek. Let me see, let me see." She snatched the letter from my father's hands, held it up to the window, and read it word by word against the light, her lips moving silently, tracing every stroke. Then her tears fell again, streaming down her cheeks, catching the light like tiny crystals. My father wiped his nose with the back of his hand, a rough, rasping sound. "Daughter." His voice was hoarse, like a rusty iron door creaking open for the first time in years. "What do you want to eat, Dad? We'll make it for you. Braised spare ribs, all right." He almost jogged into the kitchen, his footsteps quick and eager. I heard the sound of the cleaver hitting the cutting board, too hard, splitting a crack into the board, a sharp, splintering noise that echoed through the house. My mother scolded softly, "Take it easy. You're splitting the cutting board. No worries. I'll buy a new one later." His voice carried a laugh that surged from deep in his chest, unstoppable, a laugh that shook his shoulders and filled the air with warmth. I stood in the living room, watching the two figures overlapping behind the kitchen door, my father swinging the cleaver with a rhythm that was almost musical, my mother chattering and directing beside him, her hands fluttering like birds. In my past life, this scene stopped before my funeral. After I died, my mother lost 30 pounds, her face hollowed, her eyes dimmed. My father's hair turned half white, like frost settling on a winter field. They never smiled like that again. That laugh, that joy, it was buried with me. I walked over and hugged my mother from behind. "What are you doing?" She was startled, her body tensing for a moment. "There's flour on my hands." "It's okay." I buried my face in her shoulder, feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric. Flour smeared all over my nose, a soft, powdery kiss. I didn't let go, not yet, not for a long time. Zhong Yaroro's matter erupted again, like a shockwave rippling outward, after He Yun's arrest, because during the police investigation of He Yun, a massive cache of chat records with Zhong Yaro was extracted from his phone. The records laid everything bare. They showed, Zhong Yao not only knew that He Yun planned to do something to me during the graduation trip. She didn't just know, she even participated in the planning. The plank path at Wangxian Terrace has no streetlights at night, just push, and they fall. No one knows. Those were Zhong Yaroro's exact words. The WeChat timestamp showed this message was sent a full week before the graduation trip. That meant, if not for my rebirth, if I hadn't come back, she was an accomplice, a willing participant. Zhong Yaro was summoned by the police, then arrested, suspected of being an accomplice to attempted murder. When the news hit the internet, the voices that had spoken for her before, those who thought she was just joking, those who thought Pei Jiu went too far, those who dismissed it as harmless banter, all vanished. The comment section was uniformly angry, a sea of fury, tearing up the admission ticket. They wanted her life, school beauty, more like killer beauty. Good thing Pei Jiu survived, otherwise, everyone would still be defending the murderer. I sat at my desk, scrolling through the comments on my phone screen for a long time. Survived? Yes, I survived, literally. The word hung in the air, heavy. I let out a slow breath, my fingers still trembling slightly over the glass. My phone buzzed, a notification light flickered across the screen, and I picked it up, my thumb swiping open the message almost instinctively. "Shen Lang, your package arrived. It's at the security booth." I blinked. A package? I hadn't ordered anything. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second before typing back, "Pei Jiu, what package?" "Shen Lang, don't know. Come get it." I'm at the school gate now. I stared at the screen for a beat longer, a faint crease forming between my brows. Then I shoved the phone into my pocket, slipped on my shoes, and headed downstairs. The afternoon sun was harsh, pressing down on the campus with a thick, lazy heat. I walked toward the school security booth, my footsteps crunching against the gravel path, and there he was, Shun Lang, leaning against the wall with that same dark blue windbreaker draped over his shoulders. A windbreaker. In the middle of summer, I'd already given up trying to make sense of it, my lips pressed into a thin line, but I said nothing. He held a small cardboard box in his hands, plain and unassuming. When he saw me approaching, he pushed off the wall and held it out. Yours. I took it. The box was light, almost weightless. I tore the tape open, my fingers working quickly, and lifted the flaps. Inside, nestled in a bit of padding, was a thermos. Printed on the cup was a little dinosaur, cartoonish, round-bellied, its tiny arms raised in a cheerful wave. I froze, my gaze lifted slowly. From the cup to his face, Shun Lang's eyes were fixed somewhere far away, on the row of plane trees swaying in the breeze, but his ears, those ears were bright red, like two grilled shrimp caught in the sun. My little sister, your little sister bought it. I cut him off, my voice flat but edged with surprise. Yeah, he nodded, still not meeting my eyes. Your little sister knows I like little dinosaurs. A pause, his throat bobbed. I mentioned it to her. His voice grew softer with each word, trailing off like he was trying to bury the sentence. She just took the initiative. I tilted my head, a smirk threatening to creep onto my lips. What did you tell your sister? He shifted his weight, shoving his hands into his pockets. Told her, there's a classmate who gets hurt often, needs a cup for hot water, often hurt. I just got a splinter. At that, he turned, his eyes locked onto mine, and the lightness in his expression dimmed. His voice dropped low, almost a growl. You didn't just get a splinter. The air went still. He held my gaze, his jaw tight. You almost got pushed off a cliff. 2 seconds of silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. The plane leaves rustled overhead, a soft whisper cutting through the tension. Then he spoke again, his voice so low it seemed afraid of being scattered by the wind. That night when you sent me your location, I was waiting. I felt my breath catch, held my phone for 2 hours. He continued, his eyes dropping to the ground. The screen got warm from gripping it. He paused, his Adam's apple moving as he swallowed. Do you know my legs were shaking when I ran up Wangxian Terrace? Not from the climb, a beat. It was because I was afraid I'd be too late. I stood there, clutching the thermos in my hands. The little dinosaur on the cup grinned up at me, goofy and innocent, its tiny teeth showing. Shun Lang. Yeah, thank you. He blinked. For what? For running up. He didn't say anything, but the corner of his mouth lifted, a tiny arc, barely noticeable if you weren't looking closely. I was looking and I saw it. Final English adaptation. After school starts, which campus will you be on? He asked. Main campus. Me too. Oh, a pause. Then, the Malatang at cafeteria section C is pretty good. I blinked. Are you asking me out to eat? I'm stating a fact. I laughed. The sound surprised even me. Light, genuine. I unscrewed the lid of the thermos he'd handed me. It actually had water inside. Warm, not hot, not cold. Perfect. You even filled the water. Just a habit. I looked at him. His ears had already turned red, the flush spreading down his neck like a slow tide. Did your little sister teach you that? He didn't answer. His jaw tightened slightly. I didn't press further. I took a sip. The temperature was just right. I let the warmth settle in my chest before lowering the cup. July 20th. I went to Cloudtop Mountain for the last time. It wasn't a graduation trip. I went alone, by myself. No friends, no classmates, no excuses. Just me and the road. After climbing for 2 hours, I reached the Immortals Viewing Terrace. The Immortals Viewing Terrace in broad daylight was completely different from what it had been in the early hours. Sunlight blanketed the entire massive rock, its edges overgrown with moss and ferns. Butterflies fluttering by the cliffside like living confetti, the distant mountains stacked layer upon layer, like a painting washed in ink. Soft blues, deep greens, shadows pooling in the folds. I walked to the cliff's edge. My heart thudded once, twice. I looked down, the stream at the bottom sparkled like scattered silver under the sun. The water moved, alive, indifferent. In my past life, I fell from here. The memory hit me like a wave, the wind pouring into my ears, into my clothes, into my hair. My body losing its weight, the world spinning into a blur. The last sound I heard was the wind, a roar that swallowed everything. The last image I saw was the stars, cold, distant, uncaring. The last people I thought of were my mom and dad. In that moment, I had no time left for anything, no time to say goodbye to them, no time to tell them it wasn't my fault, no time to know how they fared after I died. I crouched down, my knees cracked softly. I pulled something out of my backpack, a pen, a black ballpoint pen. Cheap, the kind you buy at any convenience store. On the stone surface of the Immortals viewing terrace, I found an inconspicuous corner, a patch of grey rock hidden by a shadow, and wrote a line, very small characters, invisible unless you looked closely. I pressed hard enough that the ink bled into the stone's pores. Peijiu was here, alive. I stared at the words for a long moment. They looked so small against the vast mountain. Then I stood up, turned around, walked down the mountain. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out and saw my dad's name on the screen. Daughter, your mom wants you to buy 2 pounds of spare ribs on the way home. I nodded to myself, my voice calm and steady. Okay. Another message popped up, this time from Shenlang. Dining hall section C has a new clay pot dish. Want to try it when school starts? I smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through my chest. Okay. Then another, Wensh's name flashed. Jiu, I got in too, same school as you. Pick me as your roommate. Pick me? I couldn't help but chuckle, my fingers tapping out a quick reply. Okay, okay, okay. I turned off my phone and walked down the stone steps of the mountain. The sun shone down from directly overhead, my shadow short, trampled beneath my feet. The wind carried the scent of pine needles and wildflowers. The chirping of insects surrounded me from all sides, lively but not noisy. My steps were light, every single step landed steadily. The little dinosaur thermos in my pocket made a faint water sound. Gurgle, gurgle. I lowered my head and glanced at my shadow. It followed me, not missing a single step. Good, let's go. This time, the road is still long, but I am alive.